Hello and happy Friday, everybody. Josh here with On the Wrong Lead, another episode of On the Wrong Lead Live. We have our Kentucky Derby episode here. Finally made it to the Derby. We'll talk a little bit of Oaks. One of us had a very, very good day. It wasn't me, unfortunately. Also was not Caleb. There's only one other person it could be, but we got a lot to get to, so we'll start introducing the other members of the On the Wrong Lead team. Caleb, how'd your day go?
Yeah. So my day was okay. I feel like I've been so behind. It's been a whirlwind of a couple of weeks with having a lot of company in town and stuff like that. Normally, I'm handicapping for the Derby a week out, and I'm waiting for the PPs to drop. And this time, it was up at 6 a.m. This morning, trying to scramble before the whatever it was, like 8 a.m. or 9 a.m. first post Mountain Time. So it was early. I felt kind of behind, but it's okay. Yeah, I had a decent day. It was not a profitable day, but I picked a lot of winners. But I think there's a lot of pick fives today. And I think in 3 of the pick fives, I went AA, B, B, B and missed it that way. So just kind of poor structure on my behalf. But I am at least, seeing a lot of winners, just not necessarily getting them all on the same ticket. So regroup and see what tomorrow does. Hopefully the weather doesn't get as bad as they're calling for since today we seem to get lucky until the end, but we'll see.
Yeah, it was crazy, man. We're sitting there, and then all of a sudden we hear, hey, we are expecting serious weather. They pushed up a post time in order to get that race in, and literally, as soon as they cross the wire, all of a sudden you just see all this wind start blowing stuff. Like it was like perfect timing for the way the weather was going. And then it just started raining for a solid probably about 25 minutes, half hour, I think it was. We had a bit of a weather delay, and then and then we got going there to probably the race that surprised me the most. But I'm gonna bring in the big winner from today, Mr. Mark Capitan. Mark, congratulations on getting your seat for tomorrow's $5,000 tournament. You basically coasted today. You hit two bets, and then you were basically just like, I just got to hit my mins. So that must have been pretty nice.
It was a weird spot. I've never been in that way in a tournament. I literally had a big double I played in the first 2 legs. I hit that, was way up on the leaderboard. And then I caught kind of an earlier, it was a race 5 and the race 5-6 daily double. And was in first place for most of the back half of the tournament and just kind of coasted. So it was weird. Obviously I'm sitting here with a bunch of friends who, a few of them play tournaments as well. And you kind of have that mindset that I had more that BC mindset. Hey, everybody's going to come chasing me down. Everybody's going to be firing. You have to be defensive. And in a couple of the people I'm sitting with are going, nah, this tournament isn't like that. Top, I think 14 spots got a seat. So it was $1,000 buy-in. I turned that into 2,300 and I got myself a 5K seat. I take the 2,300 home. So pretty darn nice day. No complaints from me, and I get to fire away tomorrow in a tournament. So, I think similar to Caleb, seeing the ball really well. I was lucky that I connected on some tickets. He was unlucky that he didn't, and then that's just horse racing. But no, good day of racing. Going to get up in the morning, take a run, and sit down because I think the weather's going to roll through, and we're going to have a really different track tomorrow than we did today. So we'll see what that brings. But thank you for, and I know there's a few people tuning in already, but thanks for all the regulars. I got a lot of messages and stuff during the day of, hey, I see you're doing real well on the leaderboard. Congrats, that kind of stuff. And that's always really appreciated. That's really nice when people appreciate that kind of thing. So we had Nick on last night. He was phenomenal. He sent me a couple good, well wishes during the day. So really appreciate that kind of stuff. It was really nice.
Nice. And actually, I feel like we were all very positive all day too, which is very weird.
Shocking for us.
I don't know what was going
yeah.
on. No one was sending FUs from 20,000 feet, or from, 3,000 miles away. I feel like everyone was very positive. Caleb, more importantly, how did your dad do today?
I don't think he did very good. I think he hit one of the middle pick fives. I think he hit the one that ended in maybe not the one that ended in the Oaks, but the one that ended before that. I think there was like a race 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, pick five. I don't know what it paid, maybe 100 maybe. But he did better than me, but it's not like he made a killing today either.
Yeah, I hit two whole bets today. One was, oh man, I don't even remember at this point. Luckily, I have my Twin Spires account up here. One was the 4-horse in, what was it? Oh man, the 4-horse in race 2. I think that was like a 2-horse race. I kind of saw it. I think I was like either the 4 or the 9, but the 4 was like a much longer price. So I had a little win money on that one. And then I hit the get out in the last race. So I had that first time starter, that 8, the Phil Bauer horse that everyone was all over. He was like 8-1 in the morning line. He went off at second choice, like 5-2.
Yeah.
But I had a little bit of win money on that. But other than that, I got skunked all day. And I mean, everything I got going is dead. Even like my 2-day wagers are all dead because
that sucks, man.
Because I tried to fade good cheer, and I paid the price. So, Caleb, I believe you also tried to fade good cheer.
I did. I tried to fade like all the massive favorites today. Very on brand. Finally did catch Torpedo Anna, which was I couldn't cash in on the pick 5 with that sequence, but at least had the moral victory. I hope she's okay. That was a pretty bad race from her. But yeah, I also tried to fade good cheer, and it's just one of those things where the figures don't support the price, and obviously it's not a shock that she wins that race. But at 3-2, I couldn't bet her with the figures I was seeing her run. Clearly, I think she took a big step forward there. She maybe had a little bit more in the tank in some of those previous runs, but that's horse racing, so it is what it is.
Yeah, what's funny is Brad actually called that out at the press conference. He was like, because I think Ed DeRosa from Horse Racing Nation, he asked, he basically said that this is the most confident that he had seen Brad with a horse, and kind of how confident was he feeling today, because he hasn't seen Brad this confident with one of his horses before. And Brad kind of brought up the fairgrounds race where he was a little bit nervous that race, and it was because Good Cheer was a little. You could tell she was just getting a little more riled up than she normally is. Normally a very professional horse, he says, but he was kind of saying going into the race, if you looked on speed figures, you looked on sheets, I mean, obviously it's a horse that won every single race, but you could tell that she didn't really look like a huge standout like sometimes a horse would look. But he said he was very, very confident. And yeah, I saw it the same way as you, Caleb. I was like, there was just the speed figure discrepancy. It was similar, I think, to what I kind of saw with Torpedo Anna. At least the Torpedo Anna that we'd seen the last 2 times out. Those speed figures, while she was winning those races, they weren't, blowing away the field to where that horse should be 1-9. Could she win? Absolutely. Was she the most likely winner? Yes. But at the price didn't match up. I think the chances to win with Torpedo Anna, and that's kind of how I felt with Good Cheer. But I mean, she absolutely poured it on today. I mean, that was an impressive
That was
race.
impressive.
It was so impressive. Actually, somebody asked in the press conference if they considered if they're going to consider running against the boys already, but they Brad seemed a little open to it, but the rep from the ownership group was pretty quick to be like, we don't really do that. So, but
Yeah, I mean, it was a good race. I don't think she would have a shot against the boys, and I don't think this is a particularly strong crop of 3-year-olds. But maybe I'm wrong there too.
Well, I mean, I think we talk about you see a horse like Torpedo Anna, and you're like, oh, when are we going to get the next Torpedo Anna? And then a year later, we get what appears to be the next Torpedo Anna. So, no, I mean, she looks really good. Maybe she's just very, very good against her crop, but we'll see as they go on how they campaign her. But I will agree to Josh's point. I don't think I've ever seen Brad Cox that cocky about how loaded his horse was. I've never seen him be that, because we had the NBC feed on, and I've never seen him just be that straight up confident that, yeah, my horse is loaded. Again, I didn't necessarily try to fade her, but I thought that there were a lot of other ways you could go in that race, and to that degree, I was wrong. But no, she brought the goods.
yeah, I think really the only other thing I kind of wanted to maybe talk about was Ag Bullet.
The worst ride, the dumbest trip on the face. What were you doing, Pasta? You effing idiot!
That was pretty rough.
You have the whole track to the right of you, and you decide, hey, I'm going to ram this horse up a rail that's slowly that's very rapidly shrinking. Yeah, that's a great. I singled AG Bullet in a double, and I about threw my phone through the television. That was just an absolutely boneheaded ride, but she's clearly a very talented horse. I don't think I take a lot away from her in that spot. It's just that was really dumb.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll touch on this later in the stream, but the most likely way that journalism gets beat, we just saw it happen. we just
exactly. Right.
I love Rispoli, but I don't love him in this context, and that he does make me nervous.
Anything else you guys want to talk about from today?
I haven't checked, Josh. I know you were on track, but did you happen to see if Locked finished yet?
I hope PDT is not turning in right now, because there may have been a little bit of a conversation going on live as we were watching that race from Gulfstream, and I may have been a little bit rough on the poor boy, but man, Locked, that was tough.
I mean, what's the deal with that horse? I mean, in like the Cigar Mile and in the Santa Anita Big Cap, he looks just phenomenal. And then other times he just looks like in the Pegasus World Cup, and then today just completely flat and plotty and like a grinder. Can the real Lock please stand up? I don't mind that he got beat by Fierceness. Fierceness is a really talented horse, but I mean, he just never got into the race. I mean, I think he did finish third, but it was such a non-threatening third or fourth or whatever he was.
I think he finished last. Yeah. I don't think he passed a horse in the stretch.
But
he may not have been last, but he was either last or one before last. But it was only 5 or 6 horse field. It was just, but he picked up. There was no improving his position down the stretch. He may have passed one tired horse, kind of a thing. He was as flat as could be, and it's like, this should be his trip. This should be the setup. You expected him to take a step forward. What happened? That was baffling.
Anything else you guys want to talk about?
I don't think so. I think let's get rolling on the card for tomorrow, and I think there's a few things that'll come up, and we can go from there.
Cool. So I we're gonna go ahead. We're gonna start at race 4. I know I said all the stakes, and I think maybe I at least handicapped race 4 here, but I don't know. Did you guys did you guys look at this one, or you want to skip this one?
No, I have the full card capped. I can talk
I
about
looked
anything.
at
So.
it, and it took me probably 40 minutes to get through this race because I would handicap it for like 5 minutes and be like, "Oh, I hate this," and just leave and have to go do something and come back. So I guess we can talk about it, but don't start with me.
No, I thought that this looked like a race where you might have quite a bit of speed, and I kind of like the 12 Patriot Spirit. Time form really likes the 12 Patriot Spirit, and I was kind of like trying to get there, but there's just so much speed. This horse is drawn so far outside. I kind of just like. I think the 3-1 favorite, Liberal Arts, is probably here with a very, very good shot here. I mean, I just think that pace-wise is going to set up for this horse. And, yeah, I just have a hard time seeing how this doesn't just kind of fall apart a little bit. If the 9 Liberal Arts isn't good enough to win here, I thought maybe a horse like the 13 New King made a bunch of sense. You get a jockey switch to Irad Ortiz, and yeah, I mean this is a horse that was in Bob's barn for a bit, and then switched over to Brittany Russell, and yeah, I think this 7 furlong 1 mile configuration is going to be good for New King. I think that is a horse that's going to want, I think, to become from a little bit off of it. And, Irad in general likes to come from off it a little bit. And with the wide post, I don't think he's really going to have much of a choice. So I thought those were kind of the two horses I was most interested in. And then, like, maybe I'll have the 12 Patriot Spirit on kind of a B or C ticket in case the track is just completely lightning fast tomorrow. And just see if that time form fig is real there on the 12. But Mark, what did you think here?
I saw it exactly the same as you did, Josh. I was 9, 12, 13 as my 3 A's. Liberal Arts should win this race, but I think there's some question marks off the last two. You kind of got to wonder what necessarily happened. And I don't know if this is necessarily any class relief off those last two. Horse that's never been crazy consistent, his entire career. I think he probably takes money and is somewhat short 3-1, 5-2 range. I think at those kind of prices, I would rather try to beat him. I have a tendency to believe the track is going to come up. We'll see what the track looks like tomorrow. But I think somebody like the 12 or the 13, horses that both have some speed, they both have some pedigree that says they should like it, off going or more off going. And I think the 12 and the 13 were the two other horses that I was most interested in. Nothing super creative that you haven't already said, Josh. So maybe Caleb has something creative.
I always have something creative to say, but I'm a little. I don't feel like I have a handle on this race. I do not. But that being said, I mean, I'm shocked that you guys are both so high on the 9 Liberal Arts. I have 8 horses written down in AB fashion, and he was not in my top 8. I mean, it's not that he can't win, but I don't want any part of that horse at 3-1 or 5-1 or 6-1 for that matter. His last 2 races stink. He's not really any faster than anybody else. I guess he does maybe get a good pace set up, and he's got a couple of Churchill wins, I guess. But, for me, I just struggled. I mean, other than potentially the pace setup, what makes him 3-1 and, for example, the number 4 Castle Chaos 20-1? Because to me, they're not that different. And, and on, most of the numbers I'm looking at, they aren't that different. And I get it. Castle Chaos isn't a win machine. I'm just giving that as a somewhat facetious example, but I don't understand the support for Liberal Arts necessarily. So, I mean, so what, but other than maybe a pace meltdown, I mean, or is that really what it is? More of a pace angle?
For me, it was he fit, but I think the line's terrible. At 3-1, I'm not interested in the horse at all. I don't think he'll be 3-1 though. And again, if he is 3-1, I'll be taking shots against him very aggressively. He's one of 6 horses that can win this race. I don't necessarily think I have an angle. I'm hoping by that point in the card, I've seen a couple of races and I have a better understanding of how the track is playing. If the track comes up super wet, I don't want a horse coming from that far off. So he's just a toss for me at that point. I would, the 12 and the 13, a little more tactical speed that can stay out of some of the kickback. Those are the horses I'm more interested in if it comes up sloppy. And there's a lot of other horses in here that I think you could talk about. I don't get excited about Liberal Arts at 3-1. Can the horse win? Sure. Is the horse I'm gonna bend over backwards to bet at 3-1? God, no. I probably not even at 6-1. I wouldn't bet over backwards, but because I think like 6-1 is probably fair value on the horse, right?
Yeah. No, I get it. Just I guess for me, there's just this is such a competitive field that I just would be hesitant to take a short price on essentially anybody. So I guess that being said, I do agree with you both about Patriot Spirit and New King. I mean, those are both horses that I'm interested in this race. Probably a little more New King because I do think that the pace probably sets up for him better than it does Patriot Spirit. This seems like it'll be a tough race to win, gate to wire. But Patriot Spirit has sat, just off the pace and rated a few times. Maybe with the post, that'll be the decision tomorrow. Beyond those two, I mean, I looked at horses, like the number 11, for example, in Vageld, who's coming out of a game second place, going 7 furlongs, and is moving up to a mile where he's historically had most of his success. 2 wins from 3 starts at a mile. Coming in, with pretty good form, win 2 back, and then a decent second place to Implementation last out, who is fine in here as well. I mean, I like Inveigled a bit more at the mile, but I have nothing against Implementation in here. Like I mentioned, Castle Chaos, who you have to really, put a lot of weight into that last race, which is a spring aqueduct race. So I understand the skepticism, but it was fast enough to win this race, if you believe it. And it was fast enough to win this race on time form and Thorograph. So at 20-1, even if it's not likely to be real, I'll probably have him on a couple of tickets. And then I looked at a horse like Accretive, number 3. Joe Sharp does good work with these claims, typically off of Chad Brown for some reason. Money Supply comes to mind. But, coming in off of a nice race where he closed into a decent pace up at Evangeline Downs, beat Capuna in here in that race, who's, a decent horse who always kind of shows up. So Accretive's one who I thought might also be able to kind of sit mid-pack and then get that first run. So for me, this was a very difficult race. Depending on what else I'm playing at that time. I mean, I would love to have this race bought in some type of ABC fashion, but I haven't handicapped the undercard races yet, so I'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, and I know I don't know if Josh wants to hop into the other horses. I think in watching Churchill today, I don't think the rail was necessarily the place to be. It seemed like you wanted to be a little bit more outside. So I'm we'll see how the track is playing tomorrow. But I thought one horse I was really interested in was the one horse Ashcroft. Moves into the D-Way Lucas barn, 20-1 in the morning line, massive Tomlinson figures, and has some races, a couple of back that fit very well in here. And the horse is 2 for 2 going a mile. So I think a mile is a trip. I think you've had a couple of times in the John Hancock barn where he's in. The Hancock barn has not been hot as of late, but if you go back a couple of races, horse has some really, really good figures. And I think it's interesting to see that Lucas seems to fit to drop this one in here versus, which is on paper a little bit of class relief off from his last 2. So I think somebody like Ashcroft to me was very interesting this spot, and also was a horse that was looked at very favorably by the clockers. So we'll see if that's legit. But I think to Caleb's point, this is the kind of race you want to have a lot of coverage in a thing like a pick 4 or pick 5. There's spots where you can take stands. This is not one of those races.
Yeah, I agree with you there, Mark. I mean, I think both the inside horses are interesting, depending off the track is muddy or not, and with the pace. I said this is a brutal race, but yeah, Ashcroft at 20-1. Yeah, I can definitely see it.
That actually reminds me. I saw that they had posted early scratches already.
Yeah, they did, but I don't think there was anybody in this race.
Let me just. I'm just gonna pull them up just in case here, real quick, but. Because that's the thing, right? Is like if some speed scratches in here, but it looks like you are correct. It looks like race 4 is untouched. But if some speed were to scratch in here, I think that definitely for me at least moves up to 12. A ton. Caleb, you brought up a good point about the 4 Castle Chaos. I think that's just a fake aqueduct fig on the closer day. I think Timeform had it rated as a closer bias, right? And the horse came from off the pace, and that race was like 10 points faster, I think, than anything that the 4 has really run. So I thought that it was just kind of a, with the flow of the race, the flow of the track kind of thing. Like, so, because I had a hard time too, right? Because I saw that 120 and I'm like, this horse is 20 to 1. Although at 30 to 1, I thought the 8 was a little interesting. Chiron here for, Sophie Doyle and Richard Estavenko. The race 2 back, I think, fits in here. Now, granted, it's a race on synthetic, right? And this is a horse that maybe has kind of just found new life as a synthetic horse. But, I don't know. I feel like a lot of these turfway horses have been coming to, Keeneland and Churchill Downs and running well. So, I don't know necessarily how much that race is going to translate, but that horse kind of closed in on what was a pretty fast pace for turfway standards, where they went sub 24 and 48 there, going a mile and 16th. So I just thought that maybe this is a horse that might pick up the same kind of race flow, and maybe Sophie Doyle will be able to kind of just sit off the pace and make a run. So I thought the 8 was interesting. I mean, like, I'm talking like a C type, maybe a horse to use in second and third, and like some exotics. Yeah, I don't know. I like it. And oddly enough, this is a horse that's actually run 2 really good races off Lasix. Like, it's like the horse improved, kind of taking Lasix, getting off Lasix. So I don't know. Also, Richard Estavenko is 21% going from all weather to dirt. So do with that what you will. 30 to 1 shot. I figured it was a little interesting, but I mean, I think you're gonna get all of 30 to 1 on that horse. Anything else on this race?
Not for me.
Chris Brown saying if Evanescence didn't trip out of the gate, she would have won. Man.
Oh man, I loved Evanescence today too.
She was coming too. I know. Man, that was rough. Basically just spotted them. Spotted the entire field. Who knows how many lengths? Like, that was rough. And she was closing. That was tough. That was one of the horse that was one of the horses I gave out to my UK friends. So I mean, maybe they took it each way, and they got it on the, because I think she finished third, right? So
she did finish third.
So maybe they'll get some money.
I had her in exactas. I had her to win and in exactas with a couple horses, including the 11. So naturally, she finished third.
CB for you to win said catch a nice try with that horse today. Third underneath, look forward. Nice. So that was nice. That was a big horse for you, Mark. Look forward, wasn't it?
Yeah. Yep.
Nice.
Yep, that was my big the big double I hit that kind of put me in the lead and let me kind of coast the rest of the day. So.
All right, so we'll get to the graded stakes here. We're going to start here with race 5, the Distaff Turf Mile, grade 2 for fillies and mares 4 years old and up. Your morning line favorite in here at 5-2 is Special Wan. You get 3-1 on Sacred Wish, 5-1 on Tax Implications and Moving On Up, 8-1 on Poolside with Slim, double digits on everybody else. Mark, where did you land here?
Yeah, I took a look at this race, and big competitive field, but it felt like there's a lot of these horses in this race that just do not want to get their photos taken. A lot of these horses that have a lot of seconds and a lot of thirds and just do not seem to ever kind of put the pieces together. So I went with 2 horses that both had some recency in this race. And had some recent good form, and those were the 2 horse Moving On Up and the 10 horse Special Wan. I think both of those horses, have some tactical speed. They can be forwardly placed. I know you can close on this Churchill surface, but I think ever since they redid the turf a couple years ago, you've historically wanted to be pretty darn forwardly placed. So I think both of those are the type of the horses that can be involved early. Time form really likes the recency on both of them. I don't think there is a ton of pace in this race. I think they end up being, I don't know really which one of them guns for the lead and which one of them sits just off, but neither one of them are desperate need the lead types or anything. I think they're both the controlling pace types. And they don't have to go crazy fast on the front end, and they both have shown that they actually want to win. So I think you can be a little bit cute in here, use the 2 and the 10, and I don't really think you need anything else.
Caleb?
Yeah, I actually see this race pretty similar to Mark. I would probably give more emphasis to the 10 Special One. I think she's a very likely winner of this race, in my opinion. Just got a little too close to a brutal pace 2 back in the First Lady, and then had some time off, got a freshener at Gulfstream, won that race pretty handily, and should move forward off of that. I think she'll be extremely tough in this race. I think 5-2 is pretty fair on her, truth be told. And I do like moving on up, who's coming in off of 2 wins. Going to that common race last time out at Gulfstream on March 29th, I do think she really tripped out that day. I wonder if perhaps the number 5 horse, 5 Towns, wasn't actually better. She was just 3 wide around both turns, and then almost 5 wide going into the stretch, and just ended up getting outgamed by moving on up, who sat the rail and found a pocket late. It did lose by 3 lengths, so it was probably more of a close race than that margin would indicate for sure. And you're getting a pretty significant jockey upgrade here from Ruiz to Irad Ortiz. So I do like 5 Towns in addition to moving on up. I'll probably have both of them. And then one kind of a long shot that I'll probably have in here somewhere is going to be the number 4 Serene Seraph. She needs to improve, and there's not really any doubt about that in my mind, but I don't know quite how rock solid the figures she's earned are. Timeform has both of her local starts denoted with a P, which indicates it was, a pace adjusted figure, which generally aren't the most, highest conviction speed ratings when it comes to Timeform's numbers. She's got a win on the turf and then just lost by a neck last time out on the dirt, which is clearly not her preferred surface. She was actually
It was a rain-off race.
A rained-off race. Yeah. She was elevated to first via DQ there, where she was steadied real late, and she also closed into a fairly slow rate pace on the dirt there. So I think she's one that 20-1 is a pretty juicy price on her. Like I said, I do think she needs to improve to compete, but I think she has a pretty good right to improve. So she's one that maybe is more of like a C type, because I am pretty confident in Special One, but she's one that'll be on a couple of my tickets anyway.
I see Fortnite is fun is right there with you on both the 4 and the 5. He says 2 of the best turf trainers ever are live with 2 bombs here. So
I was hoping we were going to do the loop and I'll talk their horses and I could come back to the 4 as a price play that I did really like in this race, but Caleb beat me to it. So no, we're both, which is shocking because we're both in the same price play.
Never a good sign.
Never a good sign.
What's an even worse sign is I have 2 A's in this race and they're the 2 and the 10.
Oh God, we've missed this race so hard.
Yeah, I think the 10. I mean, the 10's got Luis Saez aboard. There's not any pace in here. I think he's gonna have it all his own way on the front end. And yeah, I think he's gonna be tough to catch here on the 10. And I think the 2 moving on up. That last race really good on all the figures I look at. Obviously winning a turf race like that at open lengths. Granted, that second fraction probably helped out a bunch where they went mental and they just went 22 in that middle fraction for some reason. But was actually kind of up on that pace, right? It was only a length off of it, so it wasn't like this is a horse like the race completely fell apart, right? And she had to close she closed from like 4 or 5 lengths off of it. She was chasing that hot pace. So yeah, I really like the 2 moving on up in here, and those are really, I think, the only 2 horses I need. I don't want anything to do with the 6 Sacred Wish. I'm gonna be fading her in this spot. And I actually wouldn't be surprised if that ends up being your favorite in this race. I mean, I know it's 3-1 and 5-2 and the top 2 choices, but I just thought the Sacred Wish and obviously tax implications, I'm sure is going to take some money because they're going to see Chad and Flavian. So I actually do think that we'll probably get a pretty square price on this 10, but maybe that's just me with wishful thinking. But Anything else here?
I think we covered it.
All right.
No, I don't need anything
The
else.
Pat Day Mile, 1 mile race going grade 2 here for three-year-olds. The classic Derby kind of washout race a little bit, or Derby Trail washout race. You got Madacat Road at 2-1, 3-1 on Gaming, 7-2 on Built, 6-1 on Gate to Wire. You get double digits on the rest of them here. Mark, I'm curious, where did you land here?
I landed in this race as one of those races that I think if I hit the all button, I don't quite have enough coverage in this race. I had a really, really, really hard time with this race. I think the two horses I'm most interested in are the rail horses in Madacat Road and Built. I think that they're both horses that, as they sort of were stretched out and everybody got Derby fever, they didn't necessarily take those steps forward. And I think are both horses that are going to really relish a little bit of a shorter trip, a cut back to a more reasonable distance given their pedigrees. And they're horses that are both going to be very forwardly placed. And they have, Tomlinson's to say they'll handle this kind of off going. And they're horses that, I think should kind of relish this 1 turn mile trip. But with that said, I think that the gap between the top in this race and the bottom in this race is not that big. And it felt like a race that I want a lot of coverage in. So I'm interested to see how you guys sort of approached it, because I felt like on this card, this was the race that I had the least confidence in. I felt like I needed the most I just had a really hard time with this race.
What do you think, Caleb?
I don't love anybody in this race, but I don't know that I necessarily saw it as a race that I need to hit the all button either. I think I feel personally pretty comfortable. I can throw out over half the field, and not be too worried about it. The outside 3 horses, don't really do anything for me. I'd be surprised if Smoke 'em Wicked can find a way to sustain a mile. California Burrito seems a lot better on the dirt or on the synthetic, but not a total throw out there anyway. But yeah, for me, I do agree, directionally with Mark's top 2 with Madacat Road and Built. Probably give the preference to Built, who I think has shown, a little more ability and probably a little bit, stronger preps perhaps in Louisiana for 3 tries. Just continuing to go longer and continuing to, finish further back. I think it makes this was a good decision to come run in the Rat Day Mile here. So Madacat Road, I think. I'm not as sold on Madacat Road because I do think he's a need to lead type. And I think there's a lot of speed in this race. I think Built is going to sit, but I think others like, potentially California Burrito, Smoke 'em Wicked. And then the outside horses, Macho Music and Innovator seem very likely to be forward. So I think there's a lot of speed in here. So Madacat Road, I'm a little unsure of, especially if he does actually go off as the favorite, then I won't be very interested in him at that price. But the one I did probably have more interest in at a better price would be the number 5 Gate to Wire. This is a horse that I think maybe just didn't really know what they had. This horse was very peculiar his entire career. Debuted as a turf sprint for Todd Pletcher, and then went into the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf Sprint where he didn't really run at all. They tried him on synthetic, and then they finally got him on dirt, and he came through with a pretty monster effort in the Swale at Gulfstream. Beat a couple of others, including Macho Music, who's in today in this race, and then Gunmetal, who came to win next time out as well. They tried to, see if he could navigate the 2 turns in the Fountain of Youth, but as a Munnings offspring, that's a fairly tall ask. He ran an even race. He ran fine. Had a little bit of trouble that day too. Had to steady in traffic a bit, but I think getting back to like a 1-turn mile configuration is exactly what this horse needs. He should get a pretty honest pace setup here to run after. And I think the race just sets up for him pretty well, and I'll be happy to get 6-1.
Yeah, CB for you to win also likes Gate to Wire in here. And I actually think Gate to Wire is my top pick in here as well. I love the cutback here. I kind of agree with you, Caleb. I think this is one of those things where they ran huge in that Swale, and they tried to go the extra 1.5 furlongs, and it just wasn't going to work. So I think I like the cut back here, going back to the 1 turn, and you get Flavian Pratt aboard. So obviously Flavian, he's basically the hottest of the hot right now. So he kind of gets to pick where he gets to ride. So I like the fact that he ends up here. I'm gonna use Madacat Road, but if I had my soundboard, I'd sound the defensive A alarm on here, because I don't know, man. I actually thought that this would be a horse that'd be better going a little bit longer. I mean, I think it's got a little bit more stamina on the top than on the bottom. So I don't really know with this horse, right? But is run some really really nice races. I don't know if this is exactly what they want to do. I think maybe even bigger cutback for Madacat Road might be in store eventually. Maybe to go straight sprinting. But I think of the Baffords, this is the best. I don't want anything to do with gaming. I mean, gaming just looks like, I don't know. Gaming just looks like a horse that they just don't know what to do with. And it obviously finished second in that BC Juvenile, but once they kind of go in, those route races just don't look great. And they cut it back to a mile in the Hot Springs, and that's a race that gaming should have won, and gaming just kind of ran around in a circle, So the works look really, really good coming in here. So maybe I'm playing with fire, going against gaming. But the only other horse that I was kind of interested in using was the 7 Macho Music, and I just think that this is the speed of the speed, and if we get to race 6 and we see that we're on an absolute conveyor belt on a big day at Churchill Downs. I mean, tell me if you've heard that before. And then, not to mention, I mean, you want to talk about mud pedigree. You got McLean's Music on top with Tap It on the bottom. I mean, this is mud top and bottom here. So I thought Macho Music, especially, like I said, if we have a muddy track tomorrow, and or if we have like I said, a highway, I thought would be interesting at a price. I do know that I need. I'm betting JJ here, and just in case somebody's watching, I'm gonna not say anything because I may have to.
You're gonna press the button for yourself there?
I may have to ask him a question tomorrow. So I want to make sure that. Make sure that.
Well, I mean, I know Caleb didn't like the horse because he saw the jockey and then just assumed that the horse couldn't win. So I didn't know how it was.
I mean, this race goes off at like almost 2 p.m. He's gonna be getting ready for dinner in bed. I don't know how he's gonna ride a horse.
Oh, that's so funny.
One real quick point before we move on, Josh. The 3-horse California Burrito. I think Caleb dunked on the horse a little bit, but I actually kind of am a little interested in California Burrito. I realize the horse has 4 starts in a row, and is going to have to sit a more tactical trip. But if the horse does have a win over a sloppy track, and is the only horse in the field that has a win going this trip. And honestly, if you assume that this horse, you look at his career form, he's been trending in the right way. If those synth figures translate to dirt, he's not too much slower than the rest of this field, and you're probably going to get every bit of that 12-1. So I guess that was my problem here. I could make a case for just way too many horses in here, and I had a real hard time. And I think something like California Burrito is interesting here for me, especially given there's a fair bit of pace in here, and if the 7 and the 1 and the 2 all get the 7 and the 1 get a little suicidal in the front end. This could have you could have a little meltdown potential here.
Yeah, and the one thing, speaking of meltdown, that I don't know what to do with this horse, and I hate the price. But Josh kind of mentioned gaming at 3-1. I can't bet the horse.
Just not at 3-1.
But if you look back, I mean, technically the 1 mile race at Oaklawn is a 2-turn race, and if you assume this is really just a 1-turn horse, he looked pretty promising. You go all the way back to that Del Mar Futurity, and he crushed Citizen Bull, in that 7 furlong race. There's talent in there somewhere, and those works jump off the page. I just wonder. I mean, he's the horse that maybe does kind of set off the pace a little more in here, maybe second or third anyway. But I don't know. I mean, give me 5-1, and I could be pretty interested in this horse. I just don't know if we'll get it. But yeah, I mean, he's one that if he beats me, I won't be surprised, despite how bad his recent couple of starts have looked.
But you do realize, Caleb, that the race goes off at 1:53 p.m. and his jockey is going to be preparing for
Oh my God,
dinner
that's
and
true. You're
taking
right.
naps. So, I mean, yeah,
He'll
it's
be
the
in his
same
comfy
issue, right?
PJs and ready to go.
I know he's going to take a little nappy poo, you know?
I see Fortnite is fun. He says none of the Pat Day horses impress him for a G2 race. What's funny is the last year, was it Fort Bragg that won the Pat Day Mile? And he just came back to win a kind of a nice race, I think. Was it Thursday, maybe? He came back and won a nice race. So I don't know. It's a weird race, right? Like these 1-turn miles, we run a lot of them, but I feel like we'll run the Met Mile, but that usually is a bunch of horses cutting back, right? Because you get those mile and the eighth types that are trying to run in that. So I don't know. This is always just like an interesting race because you do get a bunch of those kind of horses that were on the Derby trail, got Derby fever, that kind of just came up short, or you get some sprinters maybe that you're going to try the stretch out here a little bit. So it's an interesting race. It's always kind of a hodgepodge though. I get it, right? I think it's a race that later on in the year you can kind of go back and look at it and be like, oh, actually that race was pretty good. Seize the Gray, sorry. Fort Bragg was. Oh, maybe Fort Bragg finished second in that race. I don't know, but yeah,
I think Fort Bragg might have been 2 years ago.
Was that 2 years ago? Man, I don't know, man. This week has been this has been the longest week of my entire life. This has been crazy. But thank you, Sam, for correcting me there. And then Fortnite is fun. He's using the burrito horse, so I can't blame him. Burritos are delicious.
I mean, who doesn't love a good burrito, man?
Stephen Fox saying he's watching Lord of the Rings. He doesn't feel Saruman's betrayal and impact is shown enough. Do you guys agree? You know who's a huge Lord of the Rings fan? Mr. Caleb Knight.
That is true. I would agree with that. You should watch the extended edition. They go more into it.
There you go. Anything else here on this race? All right. Race 7, the turf sprint. I got bad news for you, Mark.
Oh, no. Oh, God, you're on my horse, kid.
No
oh,
balls
Jesus,
and one time
Josh.
were both scratched.
That was okay because I didn't like either one of them.
So both the Ravelli horses are scratching out. It was funny because someone had mentioned, that they both scratched out, and because he does this all the time where he likes to enter both of these horses actually, and scratch one of them. And in this case, he scratched both of them. So,
do you think that One Timer has raced more or scratched more in his career?
Oh, scratched more by far.
Which is crazy because he's run 17 times.
And he's scratched about 300 times. So, I mean, geez, horses entered every freaking third day. God.
But, so we got a field here of 10 technically with the 2 scratches. Your morning line favorite is going to be at 7-2 Rogue Lightning. Think Big at 4-1, 6-1 on Run Carson, 6-1 on Arrest Me Red, double digits on everybody else. Caleb, I know you love turf sprints. Where did you land here?
Yes, I landed somewhat confidently on the 7. Think Big in here as a top pick. I thought that this is just kind of the now horse I'm looking for. I mean, I've seen enough of Arrest Me Red. I've seen enough of Coppola. Lord knows I've seen enough of Larry Velli horses that they've scratched. So I'm just kind of looking for that next turf sprinter that might be kind of getting good and taking the division a little bit. And Think Big is undefeated on the turf. 3 for 3 sprinting at turf at fairgrounds, and then pulled off the upset last time at Keeneland at 10-1, but it really wasn't all that close. I mean, ran down Rogue Lightning fairly comfortably, despite Flavian Pratt getting first jump in that race. He can bring his race with him. I mean, Ben Curtis rides well for Mike Stidham. I just think that Think Big is a very, very consistent, logical winner of this race, coming in with improving figures, and is really one that I would feel comfortable getting somewhat aggressive through in here. If I go much deeper, I think you got to play the which of the 7-year-old gelding turf sprinters that, is actually going to show up. And that's just not a game I ever win.
Mark?
Yeah, I mean, Caleb's on one of the 2 horses that I think you need in this race, and I think it really comes down to how the track is playing. Obviously, we're expecting quite a bit of rain overnight, and the other horse I am a little interested in is Coppola, and I realize that this is not a 5 furlong turf sprint. This is a 5.5 furlong turf sprint, and for him, that is a country mile. I really wonder. I've seen these times where you get a lot of water in these turf courses, and they really they carry speed really well. Again, you do have kickback in turf, much like you do in dirt. And he is the speed of the speed. He's second off the layoff. Dale Tar has been absolutely white hot. The horse is 204 lifetime at Churchill. Yes, he's only 1 of 11 going this trip. But I think Coppola, there's a chance that he goes out to the front, and unlike what he did in the Shakertown, where he shut it down, as he got headed. I don't know if he can necessarily get headed here. So I think along with Caleb's horse, I think those are probably the 2 you need. There's one stupid bomb that I do like a little bit in here, but I think 1-7 gets it.
I would recommend that you take advice from a friend of the chat, Evil Bob Dole, and cash out on Coppola at the 16th pole, because that's about as much as you're going to get.
Mm-hmm. Stephen Fox also mentioning, if Resmi Red could retire and stop running this race, he'd be so happy. He's been chasing his 1 race for 3 years. That sounds like you, Caleb.
Yeah, I've been there. Not with the Resmi Red, but I've been there.
Fortnite is fun. He actually landed on a horse I liked, which is Rogue Lightning. Obviously is the morning line favorite here. Ran second to Think Big last time out, and he thinks second race off the boat. And I kind of agree. Right, it's the second race in the U.S. I think you could see a little bit of improvement here. Flavian Pratt stays aboard. Like to see that. And yeah, I mean the race came back and looked pretty good as far as speed figures are concerned. Yeah, I don't know. I just thought that this could be a chance for them to just kind of improve, like I said, second time off of the second time here in the U.S. And funny enough, Timeform actually gave Rogue Lightning a faster fig than Think Big for kind of being, I guess, closer up to the pace that last time out. But I don't know, Caleb, what did you think about that?
Yeah, they were, Timeform always has pace adjust their figs, and they had that race coded as a hot pace. I'm not totally sure I agree, but that's how they have it coded. And because Rogue Lightning sat closer to it, he got the pace upgrade and got a faster fig. If you look at Coppola as a good example, the raw figure was a 113, pace upgraded to a 120. That's a pretty significant upgrade for a horse that was running that race by himself. I mean, he wasn't pressured or in a duel. He was just kind of doing what he does. So for me, I mean, I'm a little skeptical of maybe some of the way they've upgraded some of those pace-adjusted figs there. But nevertheless, I understand why Rogue Lightning's fig did come back faster.
Yeah. And I mean, I'm with Mark. I'm gonna bet Coppola and hope that maybe that they put the starting gate in the wrong spot. And maybe he may.
Well, this isn't Saratoga, so I don't on the inner where they that just happens on occasion.
Yeah, I just thought price wise he was interesting. I mean, I think Think Big, obviously makes a ton of sense. This is a horse coming in great form, right? 3 of 3 on the turf, and is improving on the turf. So I have that horse as a B. Honestly, the only other horse I have in here, and it's funny, right? I think I'm using the 4 horses coming out of Shakertown. Run Carson. I thought Run Carson was interesting in this spot, just because I feel like Run Carson hasn't necessarily run great fresh, and has always kind of taken a step forward after a layoff. You go back to the Keeneland race back in October, and ran kind of flat, ran sixth, right, in that race, and came right back at Aqueduct and improved greatly and won that race, and then rattled off two straight wins, and then got a second in a synthetic race. So. Yeah, I just kind of think that maybe this is just your typical horse that doesn't like to fire fresh. I don't know if they mistimed that work, but I'm seeing a turfway work, 3 furlongs and 33 and 3. So I don't know if I mean that's just that's
That's
gaudy.
quarter horse.
So I don't know. I Run Carson has got back races that fit here, and I just think that you kind of cross the line through the Shakertown as kind of the first race off a layoff, and just if she improves to or he improves to the kind of the numbers that he's run in the past, I think that he's got a big shot in here. So I like Run Carson here as a B. I think, like I said, top pick is Rogue Lightning, but yeah, I'm going to be 4 wide here, and unfortunately, I'm going to be on a bunch of short prices. So I thought this was a tough race. I thought this was kind of a flat race. At the same time, I think you're not going to see anybody, I think, run away with favoritism in here. I think it's going to be pretty tight between like 3-1 and 4-1 in a number of. So, but anything else on this race?
Really quick, one horse I wanted to touch on is the 10 horse, Uncomparably Queen. 30-1 on the morning line. This is a horse who 6.5 down the hill is clearly a little further than he wants to go, and the 5 furlong sprints are a little sharper than what he really wants to run. He's 7 for 22 lifetime, but the one time he ran this trip, he did get a win. A horse that probably sits a very similar trip to somebody like Think Big, a little bit off the pace. And you have to hope that Pasta doesn't decide to, run him up another horse's ass on the rail. But he's the kind of horse, I don't know if he can necessarily win, but it definitely could be an underneath type, maybe a clunk up third type at a really huge price. So I thought he was at least a little bit interesting here. And if you're a time form person, he does have a couple of back figures that do fit with some of the best in this race. Hasn't run them in a bit of a time, but I thought he was an interesting sort of other outsider type horse, who does come into this fresh from a barn that does well at that angle.
I have to imagine. So Uncle Sully's saying he's been ordered to say the 9 horse will win this race. I have to assume that Boss Sully might be his wife. So I'm guessing that's who maybe ordered that one. And just so you guys know, I see Fortnite is fun and CB for you to win. That you guys are both on Run Carson. I'm working on one screen since I'm not at home, so I'm not ignoring chat. So I might be getting to stuff a little bit slower. But thank you guys for calling that horse off here. I like Ron Carson here quite a bit.
I also have Ron Carson as like a B for me. And to Uncle Sully, I don't hate Boss Sully. I would need to improve, but is on. I don't see a ton of speed in this race necessarily. And if you think that Coppola is going to do what he does and then quit, I don't want someone coming from a mile off. I think that Boss Sully could be sitting second probably, especially with Sias taking them out here. So, the way I'm looking at it, kind of paired up atop, last out, might move forward, second off the layoff here. Is a horse that I think, could be live at a nice price. More of a B, borderline C type, but a horse that I'll have on some tickets.
All right. Let's move on here. Uncle Sully saying his sister is actually the chieftain of the O'Sullivan clan in Ireland. So Boss Sully is his sister. There you go.
Well, damn, that's cool.
Race 8, the Churchill Downs Stakes, presented by Ford. We're going 7 furlongs here for 4 years old and up. As I go ahead and go back and double check to make sure that we're not scratched out here. I don't know if you guys have the scratches.
When I checked, the only scratches were in the turf sprint, unless they've updated them since.
Beautiful. Okay.
Is it just the Ravellis?
This is we got 12 horses in this race, 11 horses. Your morning line favorite is the number 7 Mind Frame, which I don't see any world where Mind Frame goes off favored in this race, but if he does, That's probably the biggest takeout reducer we're going to see all weekend. But you get 11 or the 11 Mulligan is 7-2, 4-1 on Nysos, 5-1 on Banishing, 8-1 on Giant Mischief and Bookham Dano, double digits on the rest. Um, I'm a big Banishing guy in this race. I think I kind of poo-pooed Banishing earlier in the season when he showed up on at the Razorback, and I'm like, what in the world is going on with this horse? And I think Caleb, you were like really really high on this horse, and just lost by a head. Came back in the Oaklawn Mile and won and beat a nice horse in Saudi Crown. And then David Jacobson against, I think, his better judgment, decided to try going even longer once again. And I mean, Banishing just kind of looked short in that race, right? Ended up like getting the lead and then just kind of faded there to First Mission. But I mean, all those races came back huge on speed figures. I think this is just the fastest horse in this race. And I'm going to be a single A here. I'm going to use Banishing, and I'm going to let every single other horse in this race beat me because I think this is the horse getting back going to one turn, which is, I think, what this horse wants to do. And this horse is shown to be very, very, very fast when doing it. So maybe a little concerned about the jockey carousel. Flavian doesn't get aboard here. He decides, I believe, to jump on Nysos instead. But yeah, I don't know. I thought Banishing was in here with a huge shot, and is I think the most likely winner in the spot. I mean, I would love to book 5-1 right now, but I have a feeling I'm not going to get that price. But Caleb, what did you think here?
Yeah, we see the race somewhat similarly in the sense that I don't want any part of Mind Frame. I don't care if he's 3-1, 5-1. I've never trusted him. I think he's a very difficult horse to ride. His antics are, you can tell he's a Tappet descendant in there. I mean, via Constitution, I just don't think he's for me. He was kind of, I won't say lucky to hold on, but he was all over the track in the Gulfstream Mile at odds of 1-9 against some pretty bad horses. So I don't want Mind Frame. I don't think he'll be your favorite. I think your favorite ends up being Nysos, given the hype that surrounded this horse at the time that he was racing. I can't bet Nysos at what I think he's going to be in this race off of that monumental layoff. That is such a big layoff. We don't know what we're going to get. The works he's coming in with are not standard Baffert-esque works. You see a lot of 48-3s, 49s. You got the random 124 gate drill, 2-back, which is a nice work, but it's just a very peculiar work pattern. I mean, Baffert's horses typically work fast. Look back at Gaming. Look at Citizen Bull coming up later in the Derby. Look at Matticat Road. I don't trust this horse. I need to see a race. So I'm against, I guess, one of the top two choices in here. Well, depending what Mulligan does, I guess. So for me, I do like Banishing, to your point, Josh. And I agree that he's, at 5-1, I think that's good value. Just my big concern with him is that this will be his third race in basically a month. And two of those races were huge. I mean, really all three were good, but two of those were huge. I just wonder, on the quick turnaround here, on the 2-week turnaround, if he's really going to be able to fire back to that, especially having his third race in just over a month. I'm nervous about this horse being a little over the top and maybe kind of bouncing or getting ready to throw a stinker. If the race was spaced differently, I'd be all over Banishing, but I don't know if I love the spacing. He'll be a use for me at 5-1, but I probably can't single him with the confidence that you have. So the other two horses I did gravitate towards are the number 11 Mulligan, who we already talked about. Well, I briefly mentioned anyway. I was against this horse forever for really no good reason, but I'm finally kind of at the point now that he's just a very nice sprinter / miler. He's 2 for 2 at Churchill. He's never missed the exacta, going 7 furlongs. He just lost to Locked, last out in the Cigar Mile, and Locked. That was the good version of Locked, who then went on to run second in the Pegasus and then win the Big Cap. 2-back, he had some trouble in the Breeders' Cup Sprint, and then prior to that, it's just a string of very dominant wins. So I do think Mulligan is legit in here. And the other horse I'm looking toward at more of a price would be Extra Anejo, number 6. This is a horse that I just think really this is exactly what he wants to do. The spacing here is, fairly decent, second off the layoff. He loves 7 furlongs, similar to Coppola. He doesn't want 6 to 6.5. He doesn't really want a mile, but 7 furlongs is right in his wheelhouse. He's going to get that good stalking trip. He paired up his career top essentially last time out. So we'll need, somewhat of a forward move, to, beat a horse like Banishing on his best day or Mulligan on his best day. But at 12-1, I'm kind of, taking a shot that he might have that move in there. Again, more of a B type, I think, because I do think he has a lot to make up on the likes of, Banishing and Mulligan, but he's one that I'll have on a couple of tickets.
Yeah. Josh, I'm a little disappointed in you. You had every opportunity to go full on Baffert simp and you didn't. So I guess I have to do it for you here. I think, Nisus is probably the most likely winner on the entire card. If you need a single, I think Nisus is probably it. We kind of thought he was going to be the real deal. Clearly, there's a huge layoff there. I'm not trying to, discount the huge layoff or anything else, but Clocker reports have come back on him very, very strong. He seems to be working extremely well, and this feels like the right type of Baffert in the right type of spot. Flavian saw fit to kind of land here. I think, I don't think you're going to get 4-1, but maybe get 3-1. And I think he's 5-2, 3-1 range. And I think he's if he's favorite, I'm still okay with it. I think he's the kind of horse you just single here and you move on with. Don't need to get super creative. But this is the type of horse Baffert wins with. So just feels like the right horse in the right spot.
Fortnite is Fun is asking, how did Nisos do after his original layoff?
Well, considering it's undefeated, apparently he does pretty well with layoffs.
Fortnite is Fun. It seems like he's a Nisos fan. Uncle Sully saying the number 6 Extra Anejo will have to overcome his jockey. Does that make him a C type?
Yeah, I mean, it is a jockey downgrade, to be sure.
Although, I mean, as much as we love to dunk on Rosario, rightfully so, he's been riding pretty well. He hasn't been doing his normal stupid Rosario antics. So there are other jocks in this colony that have been riding comically bad, but it has not been Rosario.
I saw CB for you to win has asked if anyone has seen a last out race from Oak Lawn win at Churchill yet.
I mean, today's literally the only day of Churchill I've watched, so I can't answer that question.
Yeah,
I'll see. Maybe hopefully someone in the chat can come up with something on top of their head. I don't know. I think Oak Lawn's a weird track. I think
couldn't agree more.
Betting it is tough. I think horses shipping out of there aren't always. I don't know. I feel like it's just kind of a weird track. But then like you see like horses like, what was it? Torpedo Anna, right? Last year came out of Arkansas and just blew the doors off. So I think it's just kind of it's a weird track. So let's move on. Unless you guys got anything else in that race. No, awesome. Nope. Race 9 here. We got the American Turf. Gonna be going 1 mile and 16th for 3-year-old horses here, and you got 14 horses here. The 2 AEs or the 4 AEs, I believe, are all out. Your morning line favorite in this race is the 3 New Century, 4-1 on Zulu Kingdom, 9-2 on Ironman Cal, 8-1 on Charlie Sublime, and you get your pick a price on everybody else. Mark, where did you land here?
Yeah, so shocking as it may be, I want no part of the favorite in New Century. New Summary won the summer up at Woodbine. I don't necessarily know who he was beating in that race. Was somewhat of a disappointment in the Breeders' Cup Juvie. Didn't run a terrible race. There's an argument to be made that he just the timing was a little bad at Oysen, but I think it's really interesting. This horse was initially supposed to run in the Thousand Guineas, and they instead decide to ship him to the States to run in this race instead, which just seems like a really odd move. From the connections, off from a somewhat lackluster performance in that race in Newmarket. I don't know. Like, why is he here? It doesn't make a lot of sense to me why they end up shipping him back to the States and choosing this spot to bring him out in. So I really want no part of him. I have him listed absolutely nowhere on any of my tickets. I was looking at a couple of other horses in here who I think are just more interesting, and I'm getting much better prices on. Those are going to be the 4-horse Mabago, the 5-horse Test Score, and the 7-horse in Zulu Kingdom. I know I'm a Chad Brown simp, so obviously I have to have the Chad Brown horse in there. And then, I thought both the last races, I thought Test Scores, Transylvania was a really nice race. I don't understand why he comes back in at 10-1 in this spot, given that performance, and especially over the fact that was over good going, which is probably what you're going to end up having tomorrow. So I think he's a major player in there. And I think if you look at Mabago, a horse who took a ton of money in that last out and definitely had some traffic trouble, and definitely didn't have the race that he wanted to have. Cassie ships him here. Cassie Barn, as much as we love to dunk on Mark Cassie, has been pretty solid. So I thought those 3 horses were the ones I was most interested in, and I will let the Euro Invader beat me.
Caleb?
Yeah, I had a really hard time with this race. I thought this race was very difficult. I'm not in love with New Century. I think he can win. As the favorite, I don't see any reason he has to win this race. But I don't have any real conviction to play against him as well. I think the connections and Andrew Baldwin probably just realized that they don't have a Guineas horse here anymore. Perhaps they just had a very precocious 2-year-old that hasn't quite stepped forward at 3. And they need to go, across the pond to try to pick up a win here. So that's kind of my read on New Century. I don't know. Like I said, I'm not adamantly against him. I don't think he'll be extremely short or anything like that. But he will be one of the top choices in this race. Kind of the same argument for Zulu Kingdom. I probably dislike him a little bit more. I know he's 4 for 5, but I've just always thought he's found some extremely soft spots to go and run. And the one race that he actually had somewhat reasonable competition, he folded up pretty bad in the Breeders' Cup. And I don't think that was all that strong of a race, given some of the runbacks there. I mean, Andre Matisse was fine, but some of the others I'm not so sure about. So yeah, I just thought it was a tough race. I mean, all the horses I really gravitate towards are really big prices. So I don't know if I'm just way off, or perhaps the lines are just way off, or maybe I'm right and I'm just going to get really rich. I don't know. But Mark talked about Test Score, who I like quite a bit in here. I mean, probably my top pick, honestly, and 10-1 feels kind of crazy. The horses to his immediate outside, Maximum Promise at 20-1 is one that I liked, who was in the Jeff Ruby, who was against, Final Gambit and Flying Mohawk. That's a race that completely fell apart, and he kind of made a decent run into that and was closer than the top 2 anyway to that pace. When it came apart, so he's one that I think, has a right to move forward here. And that Jeff Ruby Fig came back pretty strong as well. Another horse exiting that common race who I like is the 9 Giacoso at 30-1, who probably just moved too early with Jaime Torres there into a pretty hot pace. Kind of made that first move, got second to a length, and then kind of got passed again. He does have a win at Churchill at this distance, actually 2 wins at this distance. I do find Churchill's turf to be a very horse for course kind of a turf, or churf, or whatever you want to call it. So I like the fact he's actually got a win here just last fall. And then even a horse like I lost it. There was one more. Well, I can't find him. Where the hell? It's Maui Strong. Where is he? No, the 13, all the way to the outside. Coming out of that Transylvania, I mean, someone made a comment about Keeneland. I'm sorry, Oaklawn form not really translating well. Keeneland form, at least from today's races, has seemed to do extremely well. That Transylvania came back pretty strong. I think all the runners from there are pretty impressive. That's a race that did kind of go to more of the off the pace runners in there. I think this is another horse that does have a win here at Churchill. And I don't think this horse really wants to be, that forward on the lead. He's typically had his success when he kind of takes back and makes one run. I hope that's what he does again today, especially from this far outside post. But yeah, to me, there's just a lot of price horses at 10, 20, and 30 to 1 that I think look just as good as the likes of New Century or Uncle Sully, Candy Ash Trip, Zulu Kingdom that I just don't want the short prices. I mean, so give me some of these bombs and I'll let the likes of, Zulu Kingdom and probably New Century just beat me.
Yeah.
Hey,
go ahead, Mark.
Sorry, I stepped away for a second there, and I don't know if you guys talked about this horse because I apologize. I was out of the room. Anybody talk about Maximum Promise to 6 at all?
I believe
I did. Yes.
Caleb's on it, and then
cool. If you get cool, I'm sure you covered it then, Caleb.
I was rambling the whole time. So Josh hasn't even gone yet.
Sorry. Go on. My bad.
Yeah, I ended up on Candy Ash Trip in this spot, and honestly, man, like this was just a tough race, and I'll be honest. I think I was just kind of like, all right, where's Pratt at? All right, Pratt's not gonna fuck this up. Like we'll go with him. Pratt and Chad, obviously they're super successful. Pratt's 28% for the year, but guess what? On the turf, he's even better. He's 31%. So, I mean, he is just, he's just the best guy going right now. And that last race, Caleb, I think we talked about Tampa a little bit, where Tampa really, really played to closers, basically like all meat on the turf course, if I remember correctly. And he was kind of up on that pace and was able to win that race on, and they went pretty fast. So I don't know if I'm just misremembering kind of how Tampa was playing, but that kind of that stuck in my head a little bit there. But man, I love me Maximum Promise. I mean that Jeff Ruby Stakes fig came back really, 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 really big, and I think you're right, Caleb. I get wasn't really on the pace, but wasn't really with the race flow either, and came back, ran a nice third, and I think some people might look at Maximum Security on top, right, and be like what the heck? There's no turf pedigree here. That's a Scat Daddy Dam. I mean that's pretty damn turfy. So. Yeah, I don't know. I think that Maximum Promise is in here with a really big shot, and I think the two races on synthetic both look they look good, and we're hopefully that those figures can kind of translate to turf. So the only B I had, and it's because I'm contractually obligated to at least bet 1/8 per sequence. Mi Bago. Which translates to my lazy guy or my lazy one. I don't really know what happened last time. I think there was a little bit where the horse kind of came in and just kind of the wheels just kind of fell off. But this is a horse that kind of put together 3 really nice races in the Pulpit, the Denai Beach, and then the Colonel Liam, and winning 2 of those by many open lengths, and did it on the front end and did it setting some pretty serious fractions. Like I get it, right? It's the AstroTurf out there at Gulfstream Park, but I mean this is a horse that went 22-2, 45-2 going a mile and just opened up. This is a horse that's got some serious speed, and in my opinion gets one of the best speed turf riders that are out there in Jose Ortiz. And yeah, I don't know. I think that Mi Bago's in here with a really big shot. I have him as a B. He might just be an A for me.
Make him an A, then we can both have him as an A, and we're good to go.
But I just think that Yeah, it was funny because originally I wasn't really. So when we were talking about this with Andrew. I got so zeroed in on Maximum Promise and getting 20-1 on this horse. Andrew's like, I cannot believe you didn't make this. This wasn't like your best bet. This wasn't like your thing. And I'm like, I was like, yeah, I really, really like Maximum Promise in this spot. That might be a horse I give out. I give out overseas depending on what kind of odds we get. But I'm just gonna go with those three in this spot. I'm gonna not try and get too wide in here. None of us talked about Iron Man Cal. Any interest in this horse?
Yes. I think we're talking about horses that sort of fit the narrative, and I think Iron Man and Mankel does. Does he need to get a little better? Yes. Is he trending in the right way? Totally. Does he need to actually win a race? Yeah, he does. But he's also been on a long layoff since the Breeders' Cup Juvie Turf, where he has every right to take a step forward. Apparently, he's been working out very well in the mornings. He was one of the Clocker Report horses. I don't like the fact I'm getting 9-2 on him. I would have loved to have seen a prep for this guy. But can he step up here and win at those kind of odds? Of course he can. He has every right to step forward. Kind of this first start of your 3-year-old campaign. We would have loved to have seen a prep, but horse is trending in the right way. In the capable D'Amato hands. D'Amato's pretty darn decent off this type of layoff, so sure, he can definitely win.
Yeah, I thought he was fine, but kind of as a rule of thumb, I play against horses that ran in a Breeders' Cup race and ran well and then have a layoff in their first start back. I feel like they're always over bet. And I'd probably even double that opinion when it's a 2-year-old, because you just don't know how they've progressed. There's so much development that often occurs from 2 to 3 that yes, if this was January, I would love this horse, but it's May and I don't know what we're really going to get. I'm not sure how he's progressed. I don't know why there hasn't been a prep. It isn't like they don't have turf in California for all of the winter. So there's some question marks for me. I mean, doesn't even have a local work here at Churchill. So I'm just a little unsure. I mean, drawn outside here, he clearly appears very talented. So I'm not going to say you shouldn't use him. But to me, I just think, again, I gravitate towards these horses at much bigger prices that I have less questions about.
Yeah, I think I got the same problem with him, Caleb. The fact is, when I'm looking at a race and I'm saying, hey, there's a bunch of 10-1s I like, or I can take this 9-2. Well, of course I'm going to take the 10-1s. They're, 3 times the price. That's just logic. So yeah, I think that's how I kind of looked at him. Can he win? Sure. Does he drift up off those odds? I would hope he does. If I can get him at 7 or 8-1, I'm much more interested in him.
Yeah, and then somebody in the chat asked about Scipio, I think, the 2 horse.
Scipio.
I do have, I do like Scipio. Again, I think the Transylvania was a good race. I thought Scipio was, closing, pretty well into that. Losing Pratt is definitely a bummer. Rispoli's, usually fine, but Flavian Pratt's probably the best jockey in the country right now. So I like Scipio. I mean, I like the fact he does kind of have a couple preps this year. I like the fact that he can kind of bring his race with him, as he showed he's not just a California turf horse. 12-1, I think, is a good price. I like Scipio.
Doesn't Scipio seem like the least Caleb horse ever? This is a horse that took 5 times the break is made, and I realized, yes, a lot of those were in, races that have, that were stakes caliber, but isn't that sort of just make him not a Caleb horse? The just general amount of time it took him to get it done the first time.
No, there are very few Caleb or not Caleb horses that are going to be 12-1. So.
Okay, cool.
And Matus joining a little late here. He says, I know it's off topic, but no balls will be scratched tomorrow. Yeah, unfortunate.
Yeah, it's a little sad. There's a whole saying with, you hit it, you have to be right when the horse is right, kind of a thing. And I feel like we got no balls right 2 years ago, and he's not the same horse since, and he's never shown that he's really back at that level. So as much as I would love to see him return to that level, because he's just a cool horse, right? Like, he's just cool. I don't know if he's going to probably take a lot of money off that Breeders' Cup win for a long period of time, where his form on the track really hasn't backed it up. But he has a permanent. If they ever want to retire him and he wants to live in my backyard, he can live in my backyard forever. He's that kind of cool.
All right. Race number 10, the Derby City Distaff. And we have some scratches here, I believe. The also eligibles are going to be running. Scratch the 4 and I believe the 5, as well as the 14.
Yeah, the 14 and the 4 ran, or the 14 and someone else ran today.
Well, didn't Darth Vader run today too?
Yeah,
10?
yeah, that's who it was.
Yeah. So, and I thought My Main Squeeze might scratch out of this, or no? Did I hear that wrong?
I haven't heard.
Okay.
I haven't heard that, but
Yeah.
who knows?
But anyways, it doesn't really matter because I got 2 horses in this race, and they're the 2 inside drawn horses. I got Copion as an AA. Richard Mandela shipping this horse over here. Obviously coming off 2 straight wins in the La Brea and the Santa Monica. And yeah, I love this horse coming into this race, coming in on, off of 2 really, really good wins. And not to mention, this is a horse that's been working like a freight train lately, showing up really, really well on the workout reports. So, yeah, that's going to be my single A. And then I think really the only other horse that kind of matches up in here is the 1 Scylla here for Bill Mott and Joel Rosario. But, similar to what Caleb had mentioned before, this is the type of horse that, you see the layoff, and I'm just kind of like, that last race, the Breeders' Cup Sprint. I mean, she ran pretty well in that race. Ran 4th by a length, but I hate seeing these horses kind of come from a layoff and then immediately come into a grade 1. Like basically. I know Derby isn't really mid-season, but it kind of is mid-season. Like we're only a couple of weeks away before summer racing, and I'm not a huge fan of betting horses like that. But it's tough to ignore that this horse is 4 for 4 at Churchill Downs. 2 wins at a mile, 2 wins going longer. So I think this is just a horse that loves Churchill Downs. So those are going to be the 2 horses I'm going to use here. I'm not going to get too much cuter. Copion and Scylla. Mark, where do you land?
Can very much agree with you on both Copion and Scylla for all the reasons that you stated. The only other horse that I want to add to that mix is the 7 Vava, who is a horse that is also 4 for 4 at Churchill Downs and 5-9 going this trip. Kind of gets back to a track that she seems to really relish, and a Rad sticks with her. Looks like he could have gone other places. And I think, between those 3 that we've talked about, I think the race goes through one of those 3. So hopefully, I mean, again, I'm not taking super chalky horses. I will say there's quite a bit of pace in here. So I wanted horses that are coming from a little bit off the pace. The 2 and the 7, who are the 2 I'm most interested in, a little less interested in the 1, are both horses that are going to come from a little bit off that sort of, pretty juicy pace. So, Caleb, anything else that isn't those 3?
Maybe a bit, but I do directionally kind of agree with you guys. I love Copion in this race. I mean, if I could book 8-1 right now, I'd be backing up the truck.
There's no way.
I think
8-1,
half that if you're lucky.
No. Yeah.
So Scylla, I do like. Mark, you're probably more of a jockey guy than I am, because the other horse I like in here is actually the 15 Grand Job, who apparently has drawn in with some of the scratches. Coming off of a race where she kind of steamrolled Darth Vader, who ran 4th today in the the La Treyenne, was it? I think.
Mm-hmm.
Beat Torpedo Anna, who, well, granted, most of the field did, but she ran fourth and probably should have done better. I mean, she was fouled, in my opinion, pretty significantly from randomized. I'm a little surprised that the objection ended up in no change. I thought they would maybe move her up a spot or two, but regardless of what you think about that, I mean, Darth Vader ran a big race, and in a big good field. This is a horse that clearly only has one way to go, and there is other speed in here, but the reason I kind of segued into this was that I know, Mark, you're probably a little more of a jockey guy than I am. Belmont has two. Junior ends up on this one, the AE, and not on Scylla. I recognize he's never rode Scylla before, but neither has Rosario. Do you think that's just kind of Juddmonte pulling the strings on a horse like Scylla, or do you take anything from that?
My thought was that she's on the also eligible list, and he's going to put probably his slightly lesser jock. I think he goes to Rosario when he has, those sort of better mounts, and Hoonier's is kind of day-to-day jock. And my thought was they didn't really know if this horse was going to draw in. That's just my guess, though. I don't really know. I honestly didn't realize the 15 was going to draw in. I didn't even really look at that horse. Now that I'm looking at that horse, I'm realizing I need to add that horse to my handicapping. So, it's one of those kind of things.
I mean, without belaboring the point, I guess I would assume, Junior gets Bill's best mounts. He doesn't get every best mount, but in general, he kind of gets the best mount. So, I was, the fact that he's here instead of Rosario, I just thought was a little, interesting, but, yeah, at any rate, the 2, the 1, and the 15 were the 3 horses I had written down, but definitely prefer Copion more than anybody else. I'm a little surprised about Vava. I have her as kind of an unknown because I love a horse for course angle, but I didn't think we'd ever see her again after the Breeders' Cup. I thought she was going to hit that "want to be a mom" alert soundboard. I thought she was gone, because those were 2 pretty bad races in a row on her behalf. It's tough. I mean, 6-1 is not a bad price, for a horse that loves Churchill, but yeah, I mean, off the layoff, off of 2 stinkers, that's a tough horse to back.
Yeah, I mean, my thing though is, you say 2 stinkers. I think there's really 1 stinker. I don't think her ballerina was that bad. I mean, the time form came back at 121. That she runs back to that fig from 2 back. She could very well win this race. So I don't think there's 2 stinkers. Was her Breeders' Cup definitely not a great race? Yeah, it was definitely not a great race, and she definitely ran up the track. I'm not going to argue that with her, but maybe you just give her a little bit of an excuse over, a fairly substantial 2024 campaign where she cashed a lot of checks and ran a lot of big races, and they gave her, the winter off, and she came back and they said, geez, she's in good form. I also think when you start looking at some of the, connection type angles, I mean, when a rad gets up for Sherry, they're absolutely filthy disgusting. They just, at Churchill in the last year, the 2 of them are 4 of 5 with a $3.93 ROI. And, over the last 2 years overall, they're 33% with a $2.11 ROI. I don't think a rad is landing here because he's trying to keep Sherry happy. I think he's landing here because the horse is probably live. And I think this is just a horse that maybe needed a break, and she's fresh. Sherry's, fairly decent with these, long layoff fresh horses. I would have loved to have seen a prep to know, is she just ready to be a mom, or is she, is she really ready to go here? But I understand where you're coming from. I didn't think after that Breeders' Cup that we would see her again. In all honesty, she's, I'm sure, worth a lot as a broodmare. So I assumed that would be the direction she would go.
This horse owes me a lot of money.
Yeah, I was in BCBC. I had some stuff going through Vava, so I'm a little bitter.
Yeah, I think we all got boomed pretty bad in that race. That was not a good race for anybody. No, I did not have Soul of an Angel. I can tell you that much.
I will say, if this race comes up sloppy, I'll probably use Ways and Means. If it's fast, I probably will not.
Fair enough.
I think that's fair enough. My thought was there's a lot of horses in here that have some pretty good off-track pedigree. I don't think I need Ways and Means. She's just going to be overbet. She's just going to be overbet.
Anything on this race? All right. Let's let me click over to chat real quick. Mike Ang asking, any thoughts on the works on Ways and Means? Never really seen Chad work his horses that hard.
On Ways and Means?
I mean, they are swift, and that is a little atypical for Chad. The work report for this, was a little mixed. I mean, looking at the clock reports, it says, big on the clock, but lost focus, took a bad step, swapped leads a few times, then the time was fast, but the way she did it was maybe a little more mixed. Take from that what you will. I'm choosing not to read into too much into workouts for a grade 1 race for a horse that I think I already know what she is. But yeah, I mean, it's a good observation because you don't often see Chad Brown horses go 58 and change. So I definitely get where you're coming from.
Yeah, and I honestly, not to dunk on a Chad horse, I've just never thought she was. I'd never really loved her. I don't know. I think there's just she's a horse I'll just kind of let beat me in that spot. She's not a horse that I've ever been super excited about. Were the works a little odd for Chad? Yeah, they're a little odd for Chad, but they're odd for Chad on a horse that I think takes money and isn't as likely as other horses I like more. So,
race 11, Turf Classic, Old Forester Bourbon Turf Classic, grade 1 race going a mile and 1/8 on the turf. And, you got a nice full field of 12. Your morning line favorite is pretty lukewarm at 4-1 Integration, 9-2 at Spirit of St. Louis, 5-1 on Running B, 6-1 on Highway Robber, 8-1 on Taking Candy, double digits, and everybody else. Mark, where did you land here?
Oh man, you're putting me up first here. Really tough race. Again, this field is really loaded. A lot of very sort of interesting players, and I think it's almost hard for me to really talk about this race until I know how the surface comes up and how the surface is playing. We'll get on some of the so I shouldn't say undercard necessarily, but some of the earlier races will get a little bit of a feel over how the surface is playing and how do we want to kind of approach this race. On top, I had 3 horses. First off is the 7 Running B for Chad. 2 in a row. I realized one was at Tampa, so therefore that's probably the worst horse ever in Caleb's eyes. But I thought Running B seems to be in pretty good form these days. And has thrown up some time form fakes that, if he keeps up at that level, are going to make him really, really tough in this field. The other sort of, I guess I'm on 2 of the Chads, so I'll go to the 10 horse in here, Spirit of St. Louis. I never really knew what to make of this horse, but he just keeps winning and proving that I'm an idiot. So I guess at some point I have to just kind of jump onto the Spirit of St. Louis bandwagon and and realize that he's actually pretty darn talented. This seems to be kind of his trip. I like seeing Manny on him here, and that Gaff goes elsewhere. I think Manny really kind of gets the horse, and I don't think much of Gaff. So I really do. I think Spirit of St. Louis is a major player in here. And the other horse in here is sort of an oddball for me to pick, and sort of I don't know. This is definitely a Josh horse. Let's call it that. I thought the 9 Mercante was actually a really interesting horse in here. Should be controlling speed in this race. If any of those Turfway figs that he's been running translate to turf, is going to be a major player. And I kind of mentioned, I have to really see how the surface is playing. If speed is really good and you're seeing a lot of kickback on the turf, it definitely moves him up. But if the surface is playing more fair, maybe I don't even use him. So he's a horse that I'm very interested in using, assuming the fact that, I guess when I capped this, I was thinking the classic turf angle where you want to be forwardly placed and you want to play this a little bit more like a dirt surface than anything else. So I was 7, 9, 10 in here, but I have no real high conviction. There's nobody that I really love or am super excited to bet. In a tournament standpoint, it's probably a race that I try to get around and not have a plan.
Caleb.
Yeah, this was a really hard race. I kind of mentioned earlier, like I think in maybe the turf sprint, that I'm just like waiting for a new horse to step up so I can stop being, forced to choose between no balls or arrest me red or, the other. Like I'm getting to that point again with the turf division here. I mean, I am so tired of watching Integration invent ways to lose races he should win. I mean, Gold Phoenix has been running since Y2K. I mean, you got four fake Chads in the same race somehow. I mean, with redistricting and Running Bee and arguably the best New York bred turf horse of all time in Spirit of St. Louis. But like, I don't like any of them. I don't like any of them. And, it was tough for me to find other places to go. I guess to address a few of the horses Mark talked about briefly. I mean, Mercante, I thought was a little bit of a wild card, but I'm just afraid he's going to bounce off that last race because that was such a massive, that's a 20-point top for a 5-year-old gelding, now going to turf, for a barn that I've never heard of, but apparently is, quite high percentage this year. There's 10 to 1's a great price. I'm not going to knock you off for taking it, but I think it's much more likely he goes, backwards and forwards out of that effort. So I just struggled here to find anybody that that has figures that are fast enough to win that I actually liked. So I kind of instead pivoted to horses that maybe aren't quite fast enough to win or need to, prove something that are maybe better prices. One of those was the number 3 Highway Robber. He actually is fast enough to win, but most of those better efforts have come going longer, like 1.25 miles to 1.5 miles. I don't necessarily think he has to be a marathoner. He does have wins at, a mile and a 16th. So I don't think 1.1 miles is, something he can't handle. Clearly he did not handle the ship over to Dubai and the run over there, in the, Dubai City of Gold, grade 2 over there. But I'm kind of choosing to just draw a line through that. He's had 2 months, since that race. He likes Churchill, and oftentimes he's closed into some pretty slow paces. So I think that that shows his versatility there. I like Highway Robber in here a bit. 6 to 1's not the price I'd probably want. I think I'd expect more like 10 to 1. But nevertheless, he's one I think is, in here with a shot. The number 6, Taking Candy, is another who I actually do like, and another who is borderline contender on raw number power, coming out of an impressive win at 1.125 miles at the fairgrounds. Second off the layoff, but it is a mini layoff here for Cherie DeVoe. Her barn was extremely hot at the fairgrounds. She was winning like crazy. She was very cold at Keeneland, but she's since had a couple winners here at Churchill. So it seems like she's kind of worked through whatever slump that was. This is a horse that just seems pretty tactical. I mean, she gets her, typical first call pilot up here for Jose. And this is one who's, just turned a 5-year-old horse. Again, has a win at Churchill. A few things to like here. And then I think the last horse that I did have written down is actually a bit more of a price horse. And that's the number 8 Cameo Performance. That Muniz Memorial Classic at the fairground. I mean, they let an 86 to 1 horse walk the dog on the front end, who's actually in this race. It is the scratched. Okay. Yeah. Well, in that case, nevertheless, they did let an 86 to 1 horse walk the dog in that race. And, I think you have to kind of be a little forgiving. Visually, this horse was flying late. Just had a little too much to do given the, really slow pace setup of that race. But I think this is the horse you want out of that Muniz Memorial. Louis Saez has been very hot, so I don't really mind the switch off of Irad here. If you draw a line through that Kentucky Downs race, the form looks pretty good. 1.125 miles seems to be exactly where this horse tends to do best, and does need to take a step forward. But again, as a lightly raced 4-year-old with only 1 start this year, has every right to improve here. So that's one at 20 to 1 I'll have. So I'll be spread here, but mostly to the longer prices. I don't love any of the shorter prices. And Josh, you said I'd rather be blessed as scratched here, just to confirm.
Yep, I'd rather be blessed as scratched. The 5, and then was it Brilliant Bertie? I think ran today, didn't he?
I think he ran yesterday.
Yeah.
Or yesterday, he did win, or he ran, so because he won. So he was a 9 horse
he's a
yesterday
horse that boomed me in that stupid late pick 5.
He boomed me as well, so that's the only reason I remember the name.
I mean, him being out, I think, does take a significant amount of the pace out of the race. I mean, that might impact the way I look at things a bit. maybe upgrade Mark's horse Mercante a little bit. Maybe try to convince myself
Yep.
Rosario is going to send Gigante, but we'll see.
Yeah, I actually on the 7 running B is my top pick. So that's why I only played the fake Chad alert when Spirit of St. Louis came up because I like running B.
Thanks, Josh. Love you too.
And I think that part of the reason why I like running B is because of the scratch of the 5. This horse, very, very close to the pace before. And I will say that if there's one jock that really, really understands pace, it's Flavien Prat. I mean, how many times do you remember watching him at Santa Anita where he just makes some like move that if like Joel Rosario did, you're just like swearing up and down, like, what a freaking idiot. Why is he making this huge middle move? And then all of a sudden, like, Flavien just opens up and wins. Like, I think that if they start absolutely crawling up front, I think Flavien will get this horse involved really early, and I think will be kind of tough to beat if this horse gets a bit of a candy ass trip in here. I can't believe it, but I think I'm betting Integration again.
Oh my god!
Oh my god! Really?
So,
Josh, you know better. Josh, you know better.
I just like, I don't know, man. This horse has got to win eventually, right?
Yeah, when he goes to Colonial this summer.
Oh god. But you get Frankie Dettori aboard, and
Wait, Parks runs turf during the summer, right? Don't they have like a turf marathon
they're
at
not
Parks?
going to run over the. I think they're doing a Churchill over the summer. I think. I don't think they're running on it, but I could be wrong. But anyways, gets Frankie aboard again, who was aboard the last 2 times. Last time lost to Carl Spackler, which I guess at least can have some solace in that. Should have won the Pegasus. I mean, absolutely no excuse there. But yeah, I don't know. I just think that the Maker's Mark Mile, I think that was asking a lot of Integration to win a race going a distance. I don't think he wants to go. I think he does want to go at least 1 1/8, if not a little bit further. So yeah, I'm going to give Integration another shot. But Caleb, you brought up the horse that I am going to take a shot with, and that's the 12 Gigante. Got the. I'd rather be blessed. Got away with murder last time out in that Muniz, but I don't know. Kind of going into February, this was a horse that was coming in really, really good form. Had won a couple, both on the turf and off the turf, and. I thought the Muniz was. I mean, it was fine. It's kind of a shame that, like I said, those fractions. They're just no one was going to make up any ground that day. But I like Gigante here. And Gigante wasn't really bet that day either, right? I think people after the fairgrounds, they just kind of were like, they forgot about this horse, and that was another race where he got absolutely no pace to run into. So. Maybe this is just happening again, right? No pace to run into here, but I don't know. I thought that this was at least a horse that, to your point, Caleb, it is kind of a new face among some of these, right? Because we're not seeing the running bees of the world or the Integrations, right? The 2 horses I'm betting. We're not seeing them just beat up on each other and toss in some Highway Robber and Spirit of St. Louis in there as well. Grand Sonata. I mean, I can keep on naming these horses for you, Caleb, if you want. I don't know if that's but Nation's Pride. But anyways, I don't know. I just thought that maybe taking that Muniz is the horse I was going to take as the second place finisher, Gigante, just kind of have a different shooter to kind of look at in this race. I don't know. Uncle Sully's saying Integration has emotionally scarred me.
Yeah, he's emotionally scarred us all. So.
49 is fun. I believe he hit us with this fun fact last time. Is named after the Mafia Don Carlo the Chin Gigante. So there you go.
Mark, do you think we need to add Flavian Pratt simp alert for Josh for this stream? It kind of feels like we might need to.
Yes, we do. No, we do. We're at that point where if I have a hobby simp alert, Josh needs a
Dude,
Pratt
which is
simp.
so funny because I mean, it took me about 3 or 4 years to come across, come
around.
around on the maximum security DQ.
Yeah, dude, it needs to be spelled too. Okay,
It took a while.
years. Hey, two other horses I wanted to touch on really briefly. The first is the I think other Chad that's in this race, and that's the 4 redistricting. I kind of found it really interesting that Arad gets off the 6 taking candy with off them that last win, and hops on the 4 redistricting, who second off the layoff. Is one of the Chads that's probably doesn't need as much of a setup, a little bit more of the pace complexion in here. He's never run a figure that is fast enough to win this race on paper, at least, but seems to be the type of horse that is at least lightly raced, and we don't know what's there, and maybe could sort of take a step forward. I mean, we're making a case for this being a really wide open race, and a Rad Ortiz at 10-1 and a Chad Brown horse in a wide open race is something that I find at least a little bit interesting. The other horse I thought was a little interesting in here is the 2-horse Gold Phoenix. It is a horse that you're getting pasta up for the Namato barn. This horse does have a win going this trip. And, if this horse fires to that 2-back effort, that came back as a 126 time form. That's arguably one of the faster figures, in the field. That I think that actually ties Integration's best effort. But it's just 2.5 times the price. So both of those. It also has some workout reports that say this one is doing really well in the morning. So I thought both the 2 and the 4 were at least somewhat interesting. Again, we probably made a case for basically every horse in the field, but I thought those 2 at prices were a little interesting.
Yeah, I would love the 2 if this was like a mile and 3/8, but I do wonder if the 9 furlongs is a bit sharp.
Yeah, that could be. Yeah, I get where you're coming from, Caleb. Yeah.
Anything else on this race?
Yeah, we talked basically every horse, so I think we're good.
All right. Well, let's get to the big one here. First of all, I do want to shout everyone out who's sitting here watching. Obviously, we're late on a Friday night, and you guys are deciding to spend your time with us. So, thank you guys. If you haven't already, make sure you like and subscribe below as I hear everyone opening up their bourbon bottles to pour a little bit more here. But actually, Caleb, it brings me to something I want to ask before we talk about the Kentucky Derby. That 4 Roses you got, what are you thinking?
Yeah, it's pretty solid. So this is a local place here had it. It's just a 4 Roses single barrel, but it's the OESK recipe. So it's got the different yeast strain and everything else compared to the standard 4 Roses single barrel. It's not the barrel proof; it's just the 100 proof. But is the normal one OBSV? I think, Josh.
Oh, yeah, I think so. Or OESV. OESV,
maybe.
Yeah.
So it's a different recipe, and the K yeast strain is especially unique. So it does actually taste quite a bit different than the standard 4 Roses. But I like it. It's definitely unique. So I've never seen it before, so I would tell you to pick one up if you happen to find one. I'm not sure if that's like a new thing they're doing or what, but yeah, it's pretty tasty, and it's just different flavors. If you like 4 Roses, I would say pick one up if you happen to see it.
Nice. I got a regular little bottle of Buffalo Trace, which is funny because I brought this bottle back from Kentucky, and then I brought it back with me down to Kentucky, so I would have something to drink here. Mark, you're drinking tequila?
I am. I poured myself a little tequila.
There you go.
And we're working through a bottle. We do have some bourbon out there. The boys are all at the casino, so chilling with you guys here versus being at the casino with the boys. Little tequila, little neat tequila, which is I'm liking it. It's good. Josh gave me a really good pick, and really enjoyed
Look at the
it.
commitment. Mark's the man of the people. That's never been said before.
I mean,
No, that has ever been uttered ever.
It felt weird when I said it.
You felt a little like, ooh, boy, that was ooh, yeah.
Well, I feel like, now we've actually reached race 12, the Kentucky Derby. And yeah, your morning line favorite in this race is going to be the 8 Journalism. And I think hell might have frozen over because I am on the Kentucky Derby favorite. That is my lone A in this spot. I mean, he's just looks so freaking good. I mean, I have a very like really the only there's two things I can say now after today, because I was gonna say the only thing I could say about Journalism was obviously the concern that he's been against small fields all this time, right? I mean, he broke his maiden in a 10 horse field, but still, the last couple races were all 5 horse races, but this is just a really really impressive winner of a couple of races against some really, really good horses, right? I mean, Baeza is basically the greatest horse since Flightline, if you look on Twitter. So, I mean, and Journalism beat Baeza last time out. So, right, at this case, I don't know how you bet anybody else, but I do have 2 horses that I'm going to use as a Bs. I think Burnham Square, I was all in on Burnham Square in that Fountain of Youth, and I got burned. And then I was all out on Burnham Square in that Bluesgrass, and I got burned again. So I'm gonna toe the line, and I'm gonna be half in on Burnham Square here. And I'm just kind of thinking. I'm thinking from like a run style perspective. I think that this was a race that had kind of shown like it was going to have a lot of pace, and so I want someone coming from off of it, but I don't think I necessarily want like a deep closer, right? I always think that sometimes is tough. I mean, we saw horses like Sierra Leone last year, right? Not be able to get there just because they left themselves just a little bit too much work to do, right? I mean, we also saw Sierra Leone not get there earlier this year, but hey. So I think Burnham Square is got that late kick, but yeah, I think he's going to be a little bit. He's a little bit more of a forward horse, right? He's going to get involved a little bit earlier. Yeah, CB for you to win said he burnt me square. So there you go. But yeah, so I like Burnham Square here, and with the scratch of Rodriguez, I'm going to be using Citizen Bull, guys.
R.I.P. Josh's future bet.
You know what? The word, man,
Poor Josh.
you know what? I did it to myself.
Cheers to Josh.
I did it to myself because I recorded something with Andrew, and I said, I can't believe I'm going to be able to actually have a sweat on this future bet. And the sweat did not make it 24 hours
yourself,
after
huh?
I believe that recording got out. So
I shouldn't laugh.
yeah,
I'm sorry,
that was
Josh.
tough, man. And like, you want to know the funnier part though about all this is I also have a future bet on Citizen Bull, but it's going to be half the price he's going to be in this race, right? Because I have him. I think I bet him at like 10-1.
You bet him right
Right.
after he won the Juvie?
No, I bet him in the same pool I bet Rodriguez in. It was just pool 5.
Oh, you pull bet him.
So
Okay.
yeah, so I bet a Citizen Bull Rodriguez exacta box, and then I bet Citizen Bull at I think 9 or 10-1 because I was like, he's going to be 4-1. Oh, he's going to be 20-1 probably, or maybe even longer. We'll see. But I just think that okay, Rodriguez scratched out, and then we also. Oh man, who else scratched out?
Grande.
Yeah.
Grande scratched out as well, and I just thought that we're gonna have a little bit less speed in here. I still think it's gonna be a fast pace, but honestly, most of the reason why I think Citizen Bull's last race will probably give you enough to not want to bet him. But what really kind of sealed it for me was kind of the fact that Rodriguez was in this race, and I was kind of just like, like they both can't go, right? I mean, I don't think he's going to send both of them out on a suicide mission, right? But I mean, Citizen Bull has only got one way to go, because if you're on the rail and you don't break well, like, you're cooked, like, you're done. I mean, we saw what happened to Dornock last year, right? He turned out to be a pretty good horse, and you wouldn't have been able to tell by what we saw in the Derby, because the gate popped and he had no shot. He got pinballed around, didn't get out there. So I think there's a lot riding on Martin Garcia getting Citizen Bull out clean and getting him out in the lead. But I don't know. Like, I also, like, maybe this is a defensive B, and by defensive B I mean defensive Baffert that I'm doing here. But, like, do you guys remember when Authentic won? And we were all just sitting around like, wait a second, this made way too much sense. How did we let this horse beat us? Like, I don't know, man. This just reeks of Bob Baffert showing up with this horse, and this horse just, like, grinding out a win here on the front end. So I'm going to use Citizen Bull. He's definitely a B for me, because I'm a big believer in journalism. I mean, I'm not exactly setting the world on fire here by saying that, journalism is an A, but he's going to be my lone A. I'm going to use a little bit of Burnham Square, and I'm going to use Citizen Bull, and that's all I'm going to use. But Caleb, I'll let you go next. Where did you land?
We are very much in agreement with journalism. I think he's a very, very, very likely winner of this race. And as I foreshadowed earlier, my biggest concern with him is the jockey. And I love Rispoli. I'm a big Rispoli fan. But this is not his bread and butter. 20 horse fields on the dirt going 1.25 miles, that's not his jam. He's a California turf jockey where he's used to 6 horse fields and he can make that rail skimming move. But as we saw today, that doesn't always work. And journalism, I mean, he found trouble in a 5 horse field last time. Admittedly, there were some tactics at play with Baffert using Barnes to try to put journalism over the fence. But nevertheless, I mean, I was impressed that he overcame the trouble. But the jockey scares me a bit here. That's my only fear with journalism. I think this horse will run all day. I love that he is versatile. He can go. He's not going to go to the lead, but he can be in that first flight of horses. He can come from further back. He's shown the ability to overcome adversity in that last race. I just really think journalism is, the best horse in this race. And as long as he drew perfectly with the 8-hole here, most of the speed is to his inside for the most part. So he can kind of just, break cleanly, hopefully, and then, tuck in and see where he goes. But I think journalism is the most likely winner. I'll never win bet a horse in the Kentucky Derby at 3-1 or 7-2, but I think he's going to play more than fairly in the horizontals, in my opinion, because I think that, the connections don't tend to attract that much money or attention, but I think he is far and away the best horse in this race. Beyond that, I respect your commitment to the brand of Citizen Bull, but I regret to inform you that Citizen Bull sucks. He just I've been saying it for like a year. He got lucky in the Breeders' Cup when East Avenue didn't break, and then he's had handcrafted Baffert races. I mean, it's not so much he got beat by 10 lengths by journalism and Beza as it is he got repassed by Westwood, who was 40-something to 1 in that race. Like, it just rough. I mean, from the rail, that's a death sentence with a speed horse right to his outside with Saez aboard on Neoquos, and then Owen Almighty from the parking lot having to cross the whole field. I mean, yeah, that's a death sentence. I only think 2 horses can win this race, and I'm only making one of them a single A, which is journalism. The only other horse I think can actually win this race is the 18, Sovereignty, who I didn't love his Florida Derby, but I'm kind of willing to concede he didn't necessarily need the points that day, was maybe not 100% cranked up for that race. And, Tappan Street, ran a good race that day. I mean, he got first jump on Sovereignty and was able to hold him off. Sovereignty was coming in the closing stages, but just couldn't quite get there, ran out of ground. If you are a Burnham Square guy, which I think he can hit the board, I think you do have to, really like a horse like Sovereignty, considering he did take care of business there a couple times. And again, I'm a big horse for course guy. And the fact that Sovereignty does have that win at Churchill going 1 mile and a 16th, where he beat a really good field in the street sense. I mean, he beat Tistastic by 5 lengths Sandman was in that race. There was a couple others, I think, exiting that who were actually in the Derby or went on to at least compete in the Derby Trail anyway. I just thought that, Sovereignty is the one horse who I love his pattern coming into this race. Essentially, move forward incrementally every start of his career, and then essentially just paired up in that Florida Derby. That race was close enough to be fast enough to win. Maybe needs to get a little bit faster, but it's definitely in that conversation. So, for me, I mean, he's the only other horse that I really want. He'll be a B for me because I am going to loan A journalism. But other than that, it's mostly horses that I look to play underneath more so than horses that I think can actually win.
Okay, you might not think this horse can win, but what horse are you rooting for?
Oh, I'm rooting for Coal Battle.
Really?
Yeah,
yeah.
16.
I thought, why aren't you rooting for Tistastic?
Oh, well, I forgot it. You're right. Fair enough. Yeah. I do have a futures bet on Tistastic at 80-1. And I am rooting for him. And I thought his Louisiana Derby was visually quite impressive. He'll love this distance, and I love him to hit the board in here. But I do think others are maybe just a little bit faster. So, I mean, he'd be a B or C type. He's definitely a horse I would use in my Derby Super, but not a horse that I truthfully think has a huge shot to win. But if he does at 80-1, I'll be a happy guy.
Yeah, and it looks like I saw 49ers Fun is asking about Final Gambit. He's at 15-1 right now. So yeah, I know Twin Spires at least has the advanced wager up, so you can see what the pool is kind of looking like right now. And it's all kinds of messed up because journalism's actually 7-2 right now.
Render the Toby Keith horse is taking an obscene amount of money for a horse who is arguably the least likely horse to win in the entire field.
Dude, Sandman is taking a ton of money as well. So yeah, Sandman is second choice right now.
Yeah, I don't hate the fact he's second choice. I hate the fact he's like 9-2 or something.
Yeah.
To the point about Final Gambit, I do like the horse. I don't know how he's going to do on dirt, but visually his last two races were extremely impressive. The figures didn't necessarily come back extreme. Well, I take it back. The Jeff Ruby was fast. The maiden race was not, but a lot of improvement there from one to the next. You got to think backwards is more likely than forwards, but visually he looked phenomenal. But if he's 15-1, that's too low in the Derby, but we'll see.
Mark, where did you land?
So being the group of Buyers simp in here, I guess I have to break out my Buyers theorem, right? Which is the fact that if you look back over the past 40 or 50 years, whatever it is, there's only been like 3 horses that have not had a 100 Buyer speed figure in a prep and have won the Derby. And journalism is one of 2 horses that remain in the field that have had a 100 Buyer or faster figure in a prep. The other one is Biza, who just can't win because no way. Journalism for me is just a lone A. But the other horse, and Caleb slightly alluded to this, that I am actually very interested in this race is Coal Battle. And I think, does Coal Battle need to take a massive step forward? Yes, of course. But does everybody else in the field also have to take a massive step forward? Why, yes, of course they do. Coal Battle, though, happens to be 2 for 2 on an off track. And when you look at the pace complexion of this race, there are 4 or 5 desperate need to lead types in this race. And then there's a bunch of out of the back closers. And I think there are not a lot of horses that can sit that middle trip that can track off the pace and get first run. And oftentimes, if you have a sloppy track and off track, those are the type of horses you want. And the 2 horses that I think are the most interesting that sit that kind of trip are Coal Battle and Burnham Square. And I'm going to land on Coal Battle. Lonnie Burley, who we've talked, or if you've listened to, you're going to get sick of hearing about him on the NBC show because they're going to spend 3 hours talking about him tomorrow. He is a trainer who is a very small Louisiana trainer. He's a guy who has 10, 12 horses. That's kind of his barn. And they're, $5,000 Louisiana Downs claimers for the most part. And guy picked a horse out of a sale, very much took care of that horse, did has done the horse right. And that horse is really, I think he had never had a graded stakes starter until Coal Battle. And now you show up first Saturday in May and you have a Kentucky Derby starter for a very quiet spoken, what seems like the nicest human being that you'd ever want to, give a horse to. It had this story has all the feels. And I don't think he's without a shot here. He sits what I think is the right type of trip, which is sitting right behind the speeds, the Citizen Bulls of the world. And he probably needs journalism to have an off day, to have his best day. But also, if you listened going into, obviously he won the Rebel, and just off the Rebel alone, he had enough points to get in the Derby starting gate. They ran him in the Arkansas Derby, and they had to change his work schedule. They said, hey, we've been working him at a certain schedule. We had to alter it to get the right amount of works in before that race. And he just kind of didn't fire his A game. And up until that point, he was undefeated on dirt. So you have a horse that gets back to his normal schedule, is getting probably the right setup in this field. He can handle the off going. Does he need to improve quite a bit? Yeah, he does. But I think Cole Battle at a big price is pretty darn interesting.
I'll be so happy if Cole Battle wins. And I will. I mean, for my heart, I might have him want to take it somewhere.
Yeah.
But boy, has he already outrun his pedigree for this distance.
Oh, no, he totally has. I mean, I have him written down as a B, right? And I have two Bs. He's one of the two Bs, the other one being Burnham Square. And, if he were to win this, that would be probably the coolest story in horse racing in a good long time. Like he is just a very cool horse.
What other horses do you want to talk about, Caleb?
Yeah, well, I think we need to talk about Beza, who is the penultimate wise guy horse, it seems like, in this race.
I don't know if I'd say wise guy, but sure.
There's a lot of people
giving him too much credit calling them wise.
Clamoring for this horse to get in.
Oh my God.
I would have maybe liked Beza if he could have avoided the AE list. But I think the fact that he went in as an AE and now draws the super parking lot, he's going to have to work out a magical trip to win this race, I think. And that's a tall order. I do think he's extremely talented. He's improving in leaps and bounds. Yep. Sheriff's horses do tend to get better with racing for sure, but it's a big ask from that post for me. So I think I saw he was almost 20-1 on the live odds, at which point I do think he becomes usable. At 10 to 12-1, I would say probably not.
I mean, obviously he's taking all the money off from his dam, who has dropped all the G1 winners. But again, is this a sheriff's horse that's improving? Maybe it is a Bayer-Theorem horse. Race, the Santa Ana Derby came back as a 101, which puts the horse in consideration. And if you think that the West Coast, talent is the best this year, which it does kind of appear to be on paper for the most part, horse is usable, but oh my God, does Flavian have to invent a trip? And if there's anybody that can do it, he's the kind of jockey who can. But man, he is in the parking lot and has to just get very, very, very creative to get this one home.
Yeah, have you guys looked at Flavian Pratt's record in the Derby?
The only win I know he has is one that I'd rather not talk about.
Yeah, but I mean, he was going to finish second in that race no matter what, right?
Yeah.
And the who was he on last year? Why am I blanking on who he was on last year?
Was he on Sierra Leone or was it Thailand?
No, that was Gaff.
Was he on Honor? No, it wasn't. Who? I forgot what it was, but basically his record is like very, very good. Like I think the worst he's finished is like fourth. So I think to your point, Mark, is that he knows how to navigate a field there. So
I mean, speaking of amazing records in the Derby, and inventing a trip, Jareth Loveberry on Chunk of Gold. Fortnite likes this horse, and I kind of do too. He's one that I have marked as a can't win but could clunk up type of horse.
Totally.
And I thought Mark kind of made a point earlier about this race having a lot of like need the leads and a lot of just 1-run closers. And I think he's right. I think that's a fair assessment. And I think Chunk of Gold, might be one of those kind of like a Cole Battle who can maybe tuck into that, second flight of horses, along with journalism for that matter, and kind of get that first jump on the closers and not be so hopelessly, pace dependent like a horse like, Publisher or Tistastic or whoever else. So, yeah, I mean, I do like Cole Battle to clunk up. I think it's a tall task for him to win, from this post. And the fact that he's kind of lost ground in the stretch in his last two is a bit of a concern for me. But I can see there's things to like at 30-1, and he seems to be the one horse that's kind of, I think, is not impossible. It's getting ignored anyway.
In 7 previous starts, Flavian Pratt has a first by disqualification, a second, 3/3, and a fourth.
Yeah, that's not a bad list to start.
That's actually incredible considering.
Yeah,
Do you have the
really
horses, Joe?
is.
No, I can pull them up real quick though.
Because I feel like most of those were not like
No, they weren't.
extremely highly regarded horses.
They really weren't. And not that I want to break up the Flavian Pratt love affair over here, but somebody did a while ago back in chat bring up American Promise, the 5. And not that I want to dunk on anybody's horse. If you like American Promise at 30-1, you have fun with that. But I think we've looked at, if you looked at anybody who's come out of the Virginia Oaks and Virginia Derby days that were on any of those races on those cards, they have not come back well at all. Most of those horses have just basically run up the track. And it seems as though either the surface itself was really weird or the figures have come back just really juicy. But I think he's very, very, very much up against it. And I really have a hard time of getting to American Promise. I know there's a bunch of people that are high on this horse or they really like the horse, but that's a real tough one for me to get to.
I just wish he could rate a little bit,
Yeah.
Because I don't think he can get the lead here. Not really. I mean, East Avenue, just the fact he made the gate kind of at the last minute by running second in the Bluegrass, I mean, just changes this race so much, in my opinion. The most textbook need the lead in the world. And then the other two E8s drawing the inside 2 posts. I mean, just really, put the pace on its head here. I do think I like the way American Promise is coming into this race, even if, it's a typical D. Wayne horse, but I just don't think it's run style. Uh-oh, someone's home.
Just here are the last 4 because I know you were asking. Angel of Empire.
Okay, he was like 9-2, or he was like second or third choice.
He was the favorite actually.
Was he?
Yeah.
Okay.
Angel of Empire. Catching Freedom.
I think he was like third or fourth
8-1.
choice.
Yeah. Zandon.
I don't remember. I know he was short, but I don't know how short.
6-1. And Hot Rod Charlie.
He was short, but he shouldn't have been.
Yeah. And then what was the authentic year? Who was he on?
That was the September Derby, right?
Yeah. That was the one he didn't ride in.
Okay.
All right. What race were we talking about, boys?
Oh God.
We're in the Derby. Who you got, Mike?
I have opinions. Go ahead. You guys go ahead.
Well, we're already done. We're wrapping up.
You're wrapping up? That's it?
Yeah.
All right.
Go get some poon.
I mean, okay. What is Rodriguez going to win?
Maybe if he didn't scratch.
I heard the futures were like 107-1 on Rodriguez.
7-1, man.
That's a shame.
That's a shame.
All right.
Fortnite is Fun is asking about the Japan running styles. Caleb, have you looked at the Japanese horses? And
I watched the Hyacinth and the Fukuru Stakes. I found a replay. It was all in Japanese, so I couldn't understand it, but I could see it. Luxor Cafe seems to be like a pressing type, not necessarily going to the front, but he's definitely, wasn't a closer in the races I saw. He's a horse that I read somewhere doesn't really love kickback. So he was pretty wide in most of those races, which could be a problem for him here. Admired Daytona. I mean, we saw him in the UAE Derby. I think he took advantage of a really, really strong rail. in Dubai that day. I don't think that he has any chance. Luxor Cafe, maybe. I don't think he's nearly as strong as like Forever Young or some of the other horses we've seen from Japan. But if I was going to take one, it would certainly be Luxor Cafe over Admired Daytona. But I think they both want to be, forward pressing stalking trips.
I have a question from the audience, please.
Mm-hmm.
The audience would like to know what horse Terry Knight likes in the Derby. We have that answer, please.
Dad is a journalism guy, along with most of us.
Obviously, okay, he's a very smart man. I agree.
And he also is, I think he likes a little bit of Burnham Square, too.
What about Citizen Bull? Is he going to go for the Josh trifecta?
I don't think so, but I don't. He hasn't mentioned Citizen Bull.
What's his backup? I missed that.
Burnham Square.
I like it. Gosh, we're always on the same horses. He's a good man, that Terry.
We'll call you at 5 a.m. tomorrow. Get the call going.
Please do. Please do. I would love that.
Mark, this is probably a question for you here. Lori29 asking, can you briefly explain how you play horses you make B and C?
Yeah, I think that's one of those. If you're doing it, well, first off, I have a couple of YouTube videos on it. Search up On the Wrong Lead, look up playing ABC tickets, and it'll pop up. But roughly, an A horse is a horse that I think is the most likely to win a race, or the value proposition. A horse that's going to be 30 to 1, but I think wins the horse 1 in every 10 times. Right, massive overlay on just a value standpoint. B's are going to be horses that are less likely, maybe need a setup, or the value proposition isn't as solid for them. And a C is going to be the horse that probably needs a lot of help or needs to make a massive step up, but there's a huge outside value proposition there. That's roughly how I break it out. So my most likely winners are my A's, need a little help are B's, and C's are horses that I think could win if they get a lot of help, roughly speaking. And then you're using that to build around tickets.
What he's trying to say is if it's a favorite that he likes, it's an A. If it's a favorite he doesn't like, it's
I think
an
Lori
E.
left the stream.
And it's a favorite he really doesn't like, it's a C.
That is pretty accurate, actually, Caleb.
Lori is no longer with us.
And there,
thank you, Nick. I appreciate that, bud.
Yeah.
I really do appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah,
I know Nick sent me a couple of tweets during the day, and I really appreciate it. A couple other people did as well.
I mean,
so
let
really
the record
appreciate
show
it.
that he tailed his good friend Mike after to accomplish this.
unlike Caleb, who accomplishes his best when he mispunches tickets.
Yeah. Hey, we the people, right?
That's right. Ugh.
And look at
All right,
just
I'm outta here.
just
Good
to
to see you,
know,
boys.
Lori,
I'm out.
unlike Mike, Lori is actually still here. So thank you, Mark.
I apologize for the boys coming back from the casino being a little bit little tipsy.
Anything else you guys want to talk about here on the Derby? I know there's a ton of horses in this race, though.
I think there's a ton of horses, but I think and Caleb may have already said this, I think there's very few of them that actually have a chance to win. I really think 90% of the time I can get through it with 3 horses. I don't think there's any sort of I don't think there's any sort of big price plays that make a ton of sense. And I'm probably leaning on Cold Battle a little bit more sentimentally than anything else. So I don't think there's a ton else that we need to talk about.
Caleb?
Yeah, I mean, like I said earlier, I think only 2 horses could probably win the race. I think the more interesting conversation is who can run 2nd, 3rd, and 4th at a big price. I think looking for 1 or 2 deep closers, maybe like a Tiz-tastic or a Final Gambit or something like that, and then find maybe 1 or 2 mid-pack pressers that can kind of make that first run, a Cold Battle or a Chunk of Gold. And then other than that, you find I'll put journalism on top, and I'll probably find a way to come up with a super that looks something to that effect. Beza kind of being the fly in the ointment, I haven't quite figured out what to do with yet. But I think the pace will be swift. I don't really want any of the leaders, and should be a good Derby.
Yeah, agreed. I'm doing the similar type of structuring, Caleb. I think you're putting 1 horse or maybe a horse at a little bit of a second one on top, and then trying to figure out who you can clunk up for at a big price underneath. I think that's sort of my approach, and I think that's how you're going to get value out of something like the Super or the Super High Five. So I haven't put together any structure on those wagers, but I think there's a lot of money to be made in those 2. So I'll probably be taking some stabs there, and maybe trying to get late. They're live in this late pick 5 as well. So.
All right. Well, I think that's going to do it for us. Obviously, thank you guys for sticking with us. This was a bit of a marathon, a little bit longer than we normally go, but I appreciate you guys sticking with us. Obviously, check us out at onthewronglead.com, at wrong_lead on Twitter. I am at Cherry Drank. Mark is at 2_turns. Caleb is at Caleb WVU. We do this every week, Thursday night, 9 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Central. So if you're new, welcome. And check us out on we'll be doing this all through the summer, and covering Saturday stakes races. That's what we like to do, and we'll have we'll try and get some more stuff from track and stuff up, but I need some sleep because I got a long day ahead of me tomorrow.
I'm exhausted.
So man, I have a feeling I'm gonna get home Sunday, dude, and just pass out, dude. I'm gonna get like 12 hours of sleep, but good luck everybody tomorrow. Hopefully you have a good day, and most importantly, let's make some money. See you guys.